Welcome to the Space Dreamers podcast, a Sumadre production.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Lift off and the clock has started.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Roger, 0G, and I feel fine.
Welcome, Space Dreamers. This is episode 2 of the Space Dreamers podcast. I am with my co-host, Amy. Amy, how did you feel about being compared to Colonel Ty from Battlestar Galactica last episode?
You mean the XO?
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you have a drinking problem?
No, I do not have it. Actually, I have been consuming a lot more wine lately.
Yeah, I don't think Colonel Ty is a wine drinker. Do you?
No. Actually, what is that stuff that he drinks?
I have no idea.
It's green.
It's probably made from, like, spaceship gasoline or something. So we're talking about Battlestar Galactica at the moment, which is something that I talked a lot about in the first episode, and Amy had not seen it. So, Amy, I'm curious, based on... Because I gave quite a bit away when I talked about it in the first episode.
Yeah.
Based on what I said as someone who hadn't seen it then and is now pretty deep into it now, do you think I gave too much away, or...
No. I think that you gave me just enough to be intrigued, and then when I watched it, I felt like you actually told me like a lot, but really what you told me only just happened like right away.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it was like it just jumped, because it jumps right into everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few little things that I was like, where is this? You know, when I was first, but then shortly thereafter, you know, I was like, oh.
So since we're on the topic now, let's just talk about BSG. So I talked a lot about it last episode. I was talking about how it relates to hard science fiction and also the ability to remove yourself from a situation through science fiction and judge it from a new perspective. What do you think about the show?
I just can't believe how, like, I said this before, but how brutal it is. Like, like the first part of it is just so unforgiving. Like, you know, just are we giving things away?
Yeah.
Just like how so many people end up dying. Like, it's a complete genocide, and they have to like make decisions that cause them to lose even more of their population.
Right.
And I was not expecting that, because I feel like that doesn't happen a lot. Like in shows, like they'll allude to it, or it's something that's like happening in the past.
So wait, so how many people, you watch Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's all hyped on the Red Wedding?
Yeah.
How many people die in the Red Wedding?
Oh, not that many.
Not fucking billions?
Right. No.
That all die in the first moments of BSG?
Yeah, exactly. I was just like shocked.
So,
I was really shocked.
What do you think about... Well, because that's another thing. They never tell you how many people... They never tell you what the population of the human race is, of the 12 colonies. Do they?
I don't think so, but it has to be enormous.
Well, they say billions.
Yeah,
They say
it has
killed billions.
Right, because, I mean, how many... What are there? 12?
12 planets.
Planets. Those are the 12 colonies.
Right.
So that's going to be a lot of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the number the president keeps, like on the whiteboard?
Oh, I like that.
Dude, there's that amazing moment when they're counting like the deaths to reduce the number.
Yeah.
And then her little assistant is like, actually, she's like, there was a birth on one of the ships.
Yeah.
And so she like, it's just like a moment where she like erases the last number and adds one.
It's just like a great tiny glimmer of hope.
So maybe in our discussion about BSG, like, just address like what I said and what you think about what I said last episode. So like, I guess, like, what do you think of Gaius? What do you think of the Cylons? What do you think of Gaius?
Gaius is a very, very complicated character. I thought when you were describing him that he was going to be very like single faceted, like just he was just going to be like a total character.
Okay.
But he's actually like way more complicated. Like I keep going, like, I remember, going from each episode, like, kind of like changing my mind about him often, like, not really, like, understanding, like, where his motives are coming from. And, like, he's very interesting. And, I also thought when you're talking about him, I also thought I would really dislike him. I was like, I'm not going to like this guy. But I actually, like, really do like him.
Yeah.
And even when he's being a complete idiot or a jerk or an asshole or whatever, there's something about him that's very likable.
Yeah, it's like I feel like you go back and forth between thinking this is all his fault, and then, but at the same time, it's like he's kind of a victim of, like, circumstances.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, he didn't ask for the Cylons to use him to destroy the human race.
Right. And so it's like there's like there's constantly from the very beginning that sort of internal battle where he never would have done it on his own volition, I don't think, at all.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like, well, what opportunity has this presented?
Yeah, and even Six says to him, I might have mentioned this last episode. She's like, when he's like, he's like the punishment for treason is death.
Yeah, and
she's like, even with your entire race being destroyed, all you can think about is yourself.
Right.
She's like, all you can think about is how this affects you.
Right. Yeah,
and it's so true. I mean, it's almost like everything he does has that motivation behind him.
Yeah,
has basically self-preservation.
Yeah.
But it's almost like because everything he does is like that, you almost just accept it as it's just part of who he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then once you kind of like get past that, you're able to either sympathize with him or think he's a jerk for other reasons.
Yes.
Because only caring about yourself is obviously like a jerk thing.
Yeah.
But it's just who he is.
Exactly. And it's part of survival. So it's like,
Right.
He's definitely not the only one being selfish in the show. On occasion.
Who else is selfish? But his selfishness has huge implications.
Agreed.
Like,
yes.
who else do you think is selfish?
Well, I think everyone is selfish.
Why?
Because they just all have their own little agendas. I mean, okay. So the show is profound in its ideas and how they're carried out, but it's definitely a little bit of a soap opera.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that's the thing. Like, I want to talk about. Dude, I do not like television. I love that show, dude, and I was so hyped on it when I was talking to you about it because I'd only sat through 13 episodes. Mm-hmm. Dude, I'm like 50 episodes in, man. It's just, and it just keeps going. Yeah. And like, how do you, like, I don't understand how a television show like The Walking Dead, like,
yeah,
why is that show still on? Like, I mean, I would assume, like, because they sell advertisements that air while it's on,
right,
and people watch it, but like. Someone needs to take The Walking Dead and shoot it in the head like a zombie to put it down for good. I was in college when that show premiered. I'm 30 now.
Have you ever watched it, any of it?
I watched the first episode and I hated it and I've never watched it since.
Oh, see, I watched a lot of it. Okay. It was probably only a couple years ago that I stopped. Actually, it was when they got rid of Rick. Like, I was just like, I'm done.
Yeah. Like,
but that is a great example of gone too far.
Yeah, I mean, it went too far like 3 years ago, I feel like.
Oh, even, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, I agree. It's something that television does often. It doesn't know when to stop.
Right. And I mean, that's one of the things I always admired about Battlestar Galactica, because it's only 4 seasons, and they only ever intended it to be 4 seasons.
Right.
Like, it has a clear end.
Yeah, that's great.
And like, so I'm in season 3 now, and it's like they're getting closer to Earth. Like, it's got to end soon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like where I am, it's super interesting because like a lot of season 3 is like evenly divided between the fleet and the Cylons. Like you're in it with the Cylon, and you're there with all their decision making and all that stuff.
See, that's good because I, at this point, feel like it's been far too like centered on, the one-sided story.
Yeah.
Like, you can't have such intriguing characters as Six and what's the other one? Sharon.
Yeah. Boomer.
Yeah, Boomer. And like, you can't have those characters and not delve deeper into who the Cylons are and like their story from their point of view, not from the point of view of the humans.
Okay.
So I'm like really excited to get to know them better.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And there's a few Cylons that like you don't even know yet that are like really cool characters. Like good performances by the actors and just you start to see that like certain models kind of play certain roles within their like organization.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Like, dude, there's this one scene, and I'm not giving anything away. There's this one scene. It's really, really cool, where you've never seen this certain model of Cylon before, and this model appears in the show as a human in the fleet, and has a conversation with one of the main characters, one of the main human characters, and later in the show, the same episode, that same dude shows up, onto the Galactica, but the only person who knows upon him showing up that he's a Cylon is the one who just had a conversation with him before he got on the ship.
Right.
So he knows that it's a copy.
Yeah.
And so they put the guy in like the holding cell, and he's like, "I'm not a Cylon. Like, how could you? Why would you do?" And then the door opens and his copy walks in, and he just instantly he goes, "Oh." He's like, "Okay, yep, I'm a Cylon."
Yeah,
it's so good. Dude.
I actually love that whole like the copy thing. Like that part of it is just so like fun for the viewer, and like, you know, like even if it's just totally a gimmick so that it's fun for the viewer, it's like really fun because like you'll see, you know, like you'll see the person, then like when you see them again in a different in a different setting, context, you're just like, oh, you know.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's been done a million times where you have your enemy can look human, and it's just played by a human actor.
Right.
It's been done a million times.
Yes.
But what hasn't been done a million times, and I'm assuming you're far enough to know, like, the whole how you know what happens when a Cylon dies.
They get downloaded.
Yeah.
Their consciousness gets downloaded into
just a new body.
A new body, yeah.
Like, that's super interesting. And even like I'm super far in the show. I know a lot about the Cylons, but like I still don't fully understand. Like, if two different models are having two different experiences, do they all know about those? Do all of that model, can they access both those separate, like, memories?
I have had conversations about this with Mallory, who I'm watching the show with.
Okay.
And we have brought that up, and I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that they are, like, you know, like they're all, like... It's like the whole thing with, like, you know, AI in general, like how it's like, you know, like they'll start like learning their own things, you know, like they're created with a set of rules and software and that stuff. But then as they go out, they start learning their own tasks.
Right.
So I think at their core, they're the same, but then their experiences are different. But I don't think the consciousness is shared. Although, as that's coming out of my mouth, I'm remembering all of the stuff about the computers being networked. Remember how and one of the reasons why the Battlestar Galactica is safe is because the computers aren't networked.
Exactly.
So now that I'm saying that, I'm thinking maybe they are able to tap into each other's, like, consciousness. But then as I'm saying that... There's also all those scenes on Caprica with Six and Boomer, where the other guy, where they're like, "What is she doing? What is she up to?"
Right.
So then that kind of says no, they can't. They're not in each other's heads.
But then at the same time, like, you'd have to wonder, like, how many copies of one model are there, and if they can't just instantly know what each other's doing, then you have to then imagine that the Cylons have to all get together in one room and tell each other what happened last week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They would have to be like, so my Sharon went and did this, and the other, you need to know that because you might interact with those people. You know what I mean?
Maybe it's a proximity thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Could be.
like,
There's something that happens. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but there's something where proximity does come into play with the Cylons.
yeah. Well, the part, one of the things that I just watched was when, and I loved the whole thing. I just loved everything about it when they put when they put Boomer in the what are they, Raptors?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they send her with the nuke,
Yeah.
and she has to with the what is that, the Cylon device thing that they found in the ship,
Yeah.
and they like put it on there, and they like basically trick the
Into thinking it's a Cylon signal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so then when they fly in, because they end up not being able to drop the nuke, so she flies in, and that's when she realizes that she's, well, remember, there's like a bunch of her.
Oh yeah.
And they all seem very much like as one.
Okay.
You know,
yeah, like
whereas
a hive mind.
Yeah, whereas
Yeah.
she isn't. Like, she's not tapped into that. Like, they're explaining things
And
to
then
her.
wait, that's the Boomer who then goes and shoots a prominent character, right?
Correct.
So you maybe like her being so close, the signal of go kill that person. That's the only reason it entered her brain, or maybe that was pre-programmed from the beginning. I don't know.
I bet that's what it is. Maybe they just leave well enough alone when they're out there doing their missions, and then they just tap in when they need to.
There is a pretty big moment. I will not give anything away.
Okay.
There's a pretty
Don't.
big moment in season 2.
Yeah.
Where yes, there is proximity to each other comes into play for the Cylons.
Interesting. All right.
There is one. Dude, so where I am in the show, like I told you, I've never actually finished it. So where I am in the show, the Cylons talk about how they don't even know who some of the Cylon models are.
What?
Like they talk about they talk about the final 5.
What?
So there are 7 that I know of, and they talk about the final 5. They're like, who are the final 5 Cylons? And there's this one Cylon who does a thing, and like, it's part of like the prophecy or whatever, where it allows her to see who the final 5 are.
Oh.
But you, as the viewer, you don't see who they are, but you see her seeing who they are.
Yeah.
Dude, she walks up to one of them and she goes, I am so sorry. I had no idea that you were a Cylon. Like, I'm sorry for treating you that way. But they never tell you who it is.
Oh my God. I love this so much. I cannot wait.
Dude, you're
like, I just love the basic concept, how you have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, I just love it.
Dude, wait, season 3 is so crazy. Like, so many characters get, like, just change a lot. You just see different sides of them, and the Cylons become, like, they get, like, half the runtime.
That's awesome.
And Gaius' situation is pretty interesting, too.
Yeah.
And, wait, so I want to tell you one part that's so funny. Okay. About Gaius that you haven't got to yet. So there's a part where, like, it just goes to show, like, just his attitude and how it can still surprise you.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, it's a scene where he's, like, with the Cylons, and he gets, like, knocked out and then wakes up, and he's like, how long have I been asleep? And a Cylon is like, 3 days. And he's like, and you're just now getting around to seeing if I'm okay? Whereas you want to be like, you'd think that he would be like, you guys are jerks. But his only concern is like, and you haven't thought about me in the last 3 days?
That's so interesting.
It's just like, dude.
Yeah.
Like what is your motivation?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want out of this situation? It's so weird. Like, what is your allegiance?
Absolutely.
It's so weird.
I like how he gets himself into situations that he's obviously not cut out for, but it's because, you know, there she is whispering in his ear.
Yeah.
Or in his brain or whatever. When he volunteers to go to Cobol, and like he's clearly like the scenes when the craft is crashing, like just his face throughout the entire thing and like the way he acts, like he's clearly not cut out for any of it.
Yeah.
But he's just like, he has to be there along for the ride because like that's what he has to do.
Right. Dude, and probably one of my favorite scenes of like him getting in a situation like that is when it's like your standard situation where a person is talking and someone is telling them what to say.
Yeah.
So they're just saying what is being said
Yes.
to them.
Yeah.
Is when he asks for the nuke.
Oh, yes, I love that part.
After it comes out of his mouth, he's just like, did I really just ask for a nuclear warhead?
And then he has to come up like on the fly with the where he's like, for the plutonium to run, blah blah blah. Like, yeah,
And it's situations like that when it's like when he kind of is a victim.
Right.
He didn't want that nuke.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. He doesn't know what it's for.
And I think it was a scene I might have showed you. You must have seen it in your in season 1 where she's talking to him in his head, and he looks right up at her, and he's like, you haven't. He says something along the lines of like, you haven't killed us yet. He's like, we're doing just fine, like escaping you.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like clearly he still has feelings towards humanity. You know what I mean?
See, does he though, or is
I
it
don't
just
know.
literally because of that whole self-preservation thing where he's part of these, like he needs the humans to survive because he's human and like he's in this situation.
Right.
So it's like it could just be like, again, like I don't know.
Dude, there is there's another just this is it. No more talking about what happens later. With Gaius, dude, there's another scene. He's like, am I a Cylon? He thinks that maybe he might be a Cylon.
I hadn't even thought about that.
And there's this super intense moment where like shit is going down for both the humans and the Cylons. And it's the scene actually where the the Cylon sees who the final 5 are.
Oh, right.
And Gaius, like when it's all over, he's like, am I a Cylon? Am I a Cylon? It's like the whole world is crumbling around him, and all he wants to know. He's like, I need to know. He's freaking out, dude. He's like, am I a Cylon? Tell me. And it's just like, dude, like, there's more going on, right? Like, but at the same time, I get it, dude. Like, imagine if you didn't know. Imagine if like you thought you were gonna die. You'd be like, just tell me if I'm a Cylon or not. I don't care if I'm gonna die. Like, I just need to know.
Yeah, like you want to know like who you really are.
Yeah.
Like especially with Boomer, like how she, like her internal struggle, like she has no idea, and then she starts to like have these like suspicions, and then she even tries to kill herself. Like,
oh yeah, that part's messed up.
It was so I don't know, like that whole thing. It was just so sad.
Yeah. What do you think of President Rosalind?
I like her.
Yeah, me too.
I think she does a good job.
Yeah.
With everything. I love that it's a woman, of course. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Because it adds a different element.
Right.
Else,
and everyone just calls her a school teacher.
Yeah.
She was like the Secretary of Education.
Yeah, and she's a perfect I think she's a perfect balance, her and Adama. Yeah, I think that works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do they call everybody sir?
I think they do that in regular military too.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think that's just if they're above you, you say sir.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like something like that struck me. I was like, they just keep saying sir.
Well, what else would you call someone in a military situation, ma'am?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
It'd be weird.
I guess it would be weird.
All right. Well, did you notice anything like similar to what I was saying? Like how they say frack, the shirts, the paper. Like, do you notice any other like weird differences? Like acknowledgments that this is not Earth people?
The paper thing was the most obvious to me.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing has corners on it. It's like, like, but also I thought was funny though too is like, I think that the amount of paper in the show is kind of funny because now, not many years later, paper is slowly disappearing.
Dude, how about
of our lives?
How about in The Sands of Mars, the novel we're here to talk about, how he uses a freaking typewriter?
Yeah, don't even get me
He's
going.
on a spaceship with a typewriter.
Yes, it's hilarious.
Ridiculous.
I love that. Yes.
The typewriter had been disentangled from his belongings and now occupied the place of honor in the little cabin. Sheets of manuscript lay everywhere. Gibson was an untidy worker and had to be prevented from escaping by elastic bands. There had been a lot of trouble with the flimsy carbon paper, which had a habit of getting in the airflow and gluing itself against the ventilator. But Gibson had now mastered the minor techniques of life under zero gravity. It was amazing how quickly one learned them, and how soon they became a part of everyday life.
There's also a part in the book about film, how he has this like special like camera film, and I'm just like, oh boy.
Oh, film. Oh yeah, film.
Like,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because they're just wouldn't. They're like
it would be digital.
Yeah, it's just funny.
But at the same
It's just
time,
funny.
dude, at the same time, like he wrote that book. The Sands of Mars came out in 1951. Like the Apollo mission. Like, if you compare it to when space travel actually started to happen, like,
Yeah, that is a good point.
Each astronaut was literally allowed to bring, like, one cassette with music.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, like, not digital.
Right. At the time, yeah, I don't know. It's funny to think about it.
Yeah. So, okay, one more thing I want to say about BSG.
You keep saying that.
Dude, BSG, dude, okay. I think that show does so many things. Why it's so good is because it does so many things that, like, I feel like you don't even notice until you're like me and you've watched it 3 or 4 times and you love sci-fi. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, you notice how not once are you inside the BSG and you can see out into space through a window.
Oh, you're
Not
totally right.
Once, dude.
Oh.
Think about, like, Star Trek. He sits in that chair in the middle, and there's, like, a window.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever even thought about or realized that when they're in that commanding place, they're only ever looking at screens? They're never looking
you're
out
right.
a window.
That's so funny.
You know?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's almost like they don't even ever do it in the Vipers or the Raptors either. Like, you just see, I mean, obviously they have windows they can see.
Yeah.
But it's never like their view.
Yeah, very
out the
rarely.
window,
Yeah, very
you know?
rarely. Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And I do like, too, how the BSG itself is like you mentioned earlier, like it's almost like it's analog. Like it's not digital. And I love in the first episode how they explain, like, that's why the BSG, that's what gives you the excuse to have, like, the only thing that can put up a fight is, like, the less powerful thing.
Yes.
Because it's not connected, you know.
Yeah, because the silence can infiltrate it with their high-tech digital network.
Yeah, and that's how you can. That's how it just gives you an excuse to have that attitude through the whole show to be like we're doing this old school,
right?
Like old school is going to win over new school. It's
right.
like it gives you an excuse to have that actually be a viable option.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
and like they call like Adama like the old man, like you know what I mean,
right?
And then okay, I'm going to stop because I was about to give more shit away, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
I know we're here to talk about the book,
which was really good. I actually really liked it.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay.
But we need to talk about the Terminator. That's personally in my brain, that is what I want to hear your opinion on the most. But let's talk about the book.
Okay.
What's up, Space Dreamers? Thank you so much for making it this far into the podcast. Before we get into the novel, The Sands of Mars by Arthur C. Clarke, we have to take an extremely quick break to thank our sponsors.
The Moon's very first love hotel, the Love Dome, is now taking reservations. According to the latest research on interplanetary relationships, divorce on the Moon has been decreasing. Are moonfolk more easygoing?
Maybe.
Could moon dust be an aphrodisiac?
Ooh.
The jury's still out on that one, I'm afraid. But fear not, the amenities in the Love Dome are out of this world.
What world?
Any world. You'll be treated to heavenly views of the stars, 3-course meals from the best chefs outside of Earth, and a 0G jacuzzi.
This I have to see.
Is that a brand new state-of-the-art luxury resort Love Dome in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
So last episode, I read the novel, but Amy did not. And let me just tell you, I spared you.
Yep.
This is a much better novel. Okay. When it comes to, Prelude to Space, like I said last time, it's a decent novel if you're curious about a certain perspective in a way somebody would write a sci-fi book in the 40s.
Yeah.
The Sands of Mars is an actual novel with actual conflicts and like a climax.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely doesn't reach the highs of Rama, 2001, Fountains of Paradise,
Right.
like all the classic, like the really good ones that stick out.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty good novel.
Mm-hmm.
So, Amy read it this time. What did you think? What did you think?
I enjoyed the fact that the beginning, like the first half, is so wildly different from the second half.
Oh, yeah.
And how, honestly, when I first started reading it, like it wasn't until he lands on Mars and mentions something about vegetation.
They found themselves among slender, leathery plants of a type they had never seen before. The leaves rose vertically out of the ground in long, thin streamers and were covered with numberless pods, which looked as if they might contain seeds. The flat sides were all turned towards the sun, and Gibson was interested to the note that, while the sunlit sides of the leaves were black, the shadowed parts were grayish-white. It was a simple but effective trick to reduce loss of heat.
Like I caught myself going, that's not true. There's no vegetation on Mars. And then I was like, oh, I'm not reading something real. Like this is science fiction. So that's like the first part of it is all about like his journey to Mars.
Right.
And like he gets very, technical.
Yep.
Like he usually does.
Yeah.
And so like it was so real to me.
Yeah.
Like I thought I was really reading about like what this journey would actually be like. So like I said, it wasn't until he said something about vegetation that I was like, yeah, wait, oh no, it's fiction.
Yeah. So the whole first half is basically, so the novel is about a science fiction writer.
Yes.
Who is the main character, and he somehow achieves the ability to go to Mars. And he's famous, clearly. Like everyone knows his writing.
Yes.
Not
they
everyone
do.
likes it, but everyone knows it.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's like a famous sci-fi author who travels to Mars, and during his travel to Mars, it's just a vehicle to show all these cool, potentially real space flight concepts that Clarke has. Like the one that I really liked was how they forget something on the moon.
Yes.
And then they like launch a missile at them to catch up to them, and then they rendezvous with the missile and take aboard whatever it was that they forgot.
Yes.
Like I thought that was really cool.
Scott was optimistically aiming for a treble 20 when Bradley drifted into the room bearing a signals form in his hand. "Don't look now," he said in his soft, carefully modulated voice. "But we're being followed." Everyone gaped at him as he relaxed in the doorway. McKay was the first to recover. "Please elucidate," he said primly. "There's a Mark III carrier missile coming after us, hell for leather. It's just been launched from the outer station and should pass us in 4 days. They want me to catch it with our radio control as it goes by. But with the dispersion it will have at this range, that's asking a lot. I doubt if it will go within 100,000 kilometers of us. What's it in aid of? Someone left their toothbrush behind? It seems to be carrying urgent medical supplies. Here, Doc, you have a look."
It was very cool. And it's funny because you were talking about like how, there's not as much like conflict in this, but I think it's just not like as grandiose, because I mean that was actually something where I was like, oh geez, they're gonna have to like figure this out, and but I mean it wasn't like a huge deal.
I think that's I still love the movie Ad Astra.
Yeah,
it's a downer, man, and it's just like it's a really slow, but it really feels like an Arthur C. Clarke novel. It really does, dude, because all the exciting moments in Ad Astra have almost no bearing on the plot. They're just like, it's like if you were on the moon and you had to get from one place to another, and there were border disputes on the moon,
right,
and there were pirates on the moon, you could run into a situation where you're being chased by pirate vehicles and shot at with freaking laser guns on the moon.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the end of the scene, your main character is still perfectly safe and he's still going to Mars.
Yeah.
So it's just like this cool moment to have like a cool sci-fi moment. It's like, I mean, that's why you make a sci-fi movie, to have cool sci-fi moments.
Right.
But it's the same thing, I feel like, in the first half of this novel.
Yeah, I agree.
Where it's just like these little things that like might happen. I also really liked, and maybe I think this is one thing that you researched. So let's get to this.
What is it?
How dangerous are meteors or little space rocks while you're traveling really fast through space?
Oh, right, because they talk about that. Where, like, it don't they say in the book he's talking about he's having a conversation with one of the crew members.
Well, yeah, I think that's the whole novel, is him having conversations with crew members, right?
That's the whole first part of the novel. Anyway, he's having a conversation with the crew members about how everyone on Earth thinks meteors are a big deal.
Right.
When the space guy's like, the crew member is like, oh no, they're not a big deal at all.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a myth. And he's like, oh, so I can write back to Earth and say they got nothing to worry about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what you're talking about?
Meteors? Said McKay. Ah, yes, a very interesting subject. I'm afraid, though, that a great deal of highly misleading information has been published about them. It wasn't so long ago that people believed a spaceship would be riddled as soon as it left atmosphere. Some of them still do, replied Gibson. At least they think that large-scale passenger travel won't be safe. McKay gave a snort of disgust. Meteors are considerably less dangerous than lightning, and the biggest normal one is a lot smaller than a pea. But, after all, one ship has been damaged by them. You mean the Star Queen? One serious accident in the last 5 years is quite a satisfactory record. No ship has ever actually been lost through meteors. What about the Pallas? No one knows what happened to her. That's only the popular theory. It's not all popular among the experts. So I can tell the public to forget all about the matter. Yes, of course. There is the question of dust. Dust? Well, if by meteors you mean fairly large particles from a couple of millimeters upwards, you needn't worry. But dust is a nuisance, particularly on space stations. Every few years, someone has to go over the skin to locate the punctures. They're usually far too small to be visible to the eye. But a bit of dust moving at 50 kilometers a second can get through a surprising thickness of metal. This sounded faintly alarming to Gibson, and McKay hastened to reassure him. There really isn't the slightest need to worry, he repeated. There's always a certain hull leakage taking place. The air supply simply takes it in its stride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I love is I love that they trick him. They're like, hey, man. So basically what happens is they realize without, our main character's name is Martin Gibson. Mm-hmm. Without Martin being present, they talk about, oh, dude, like we have like some kind of pressure issue. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
Like I think we got hit with a good-sized meteor and we need to fix it. And he goes, but we can't, Martin can't know. And they're like, well, where is the hole? And they're like, right on one of the walls of his room.
I forgot about that. I loved that part.
So then they trick him. They're like, hey, Martin, you want to do an EVA?
Yeah, that's right.
You want to put on a suit and free float? And he's like,
that's
yeah,
right. Oh
hell yeah,
God.
I do.
The outer door slid aside. Gibson felt the last trace of air tugging at him as it escaped. The feeble impulse set him moving towards the exit, and he drifted slowly out into the stars. The slowness of motion and the utter silence combined to make the moment deeply impressive. The Ares was receding behind him with a terrifying inevitability. He was plunging into space, real space at last. His only link with safety, that tenuous thread unreeling at his side. Yet the experience, though so novel, awoke faint echoes of a familiarity in his mind. His brain must have been working with unusual swiftness, for he recalled the parallel almost immediately. This was like the moment in his childhood, a moment he could have sworn until now forgotten beyond recall, when he had been taught to swim by being dropped into 10 meters of water. Once again, he was plunging headlong into a new and unknown element. The friction of the reel had checked his momentum when the cord attaching him to Bradley gave a jerk. He had almost forgotten his companion, who was now blasting away from the ship with the little gas jets at the base of his suit, towing Gibson behind him. Gibson was quite startled when the other's voice, echoing metallically from the speaker in his suit, shattered the silence.
And so while he's free floating, they fix the hole.
Right.
That's
You know, it's so
in
funny.
his
I
room.
didn't even like put that together until we were just talking about it. How like they have that whole conversation about the meteors,
Yeah.
and then it go, and then also remember there's the part where he's like he wakes up from sleep and he's like, what was that noise?
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
was the meteor, right?
That was it hitting.
Okay, yeah,
and
yeah.
then it turns out that all of like that conversation about the meteors and that noise at night, you know, moves into we got to get him on an EVA.
Yeah.
So that we could fix it. Yeah, that's really funny. And then also, it's just a great excuse for him to experience that.
Yeah,
because remember,
exactly.
they said that ordinarily they wouldn't let you.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's really funny.
And I can't remember, but they must make something up as to why he's allowed to.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember.
So I did definitely a little bit of looking into the whole meteor situation.
Yeah.
And the first thing that struck me is meteor is actually the wrong term.
Meteorite.
Yeah, meteor.
Yeah.
No. That's wrong too.
What?
It's a meteoroid.
Oh, okay.
Meteoroid. Yeah, meteoroid.
Okay.
So that's what they are. The little tiny particles. They can be teeny tiny, like almost invisible, like space dust.
Right, right.
Up to I think 100 meters.
Damn.
Yeah. So they're relatively like small, you know, like an asteroid, comet, much bigger.
Okay.
So first they're meteoroids, then it's a meteor as it enters the Earth's atmosphere and starts burning up.
Once it lands, it's a meteorite?
What's left over and what would come into our atmosphere, and if it was big enough, actually land, would be a meteorite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got
So
you.
what we should be talking about are meteoroids.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway.
Got it.
Yeah. So anyway, basically, they're too small usually to do like real damage,
Okay.
like on their own. But if you were to enter into like a dust cloud where there's like tons and tons and tons of them,
Okay.
then you'd end up with some issues.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's talk about like that it's mainly an issue for our satellites, like not like spacecrafts are really large,
Yeah.
but like all the little satellites and stuff are highly susceptible. And it's more that we know what the like physical material issues would be if a meteoroid hit a spacecraft, but it's actually the electrical implications that we're really trying to like figure out.
In what way?
Which I thought was interesting. Well, it's something about like the burning, you know, or like when they impact, like when the meteoroid impacts, like it creates like an energy.
Like static energy or something?
I'm like, I wasn't really like, it's like they're like not, you know, they just talk about like anomalies with satellites, like issues with satellites that they're attributing to space dust, which would be meteoroids.
Okay.
So it's like they're not like entirely sure exactly, because it has to do with like the speed at which they hit and like, you know, like what the elements are of the debris and like all this stuff. So it really, at this point, like if you went through a huge dust cloud, it might be an issue, but really it would probably just be like the surface damage.
Okay.
So I don't think it would actually like penetrate.
Got it.
Because NASA spends so much time like surveying, like looking for dust clouds, looking for meteoroids,
Okay.
you know, all of that stuff that like it would be avoidable for the most part.
I think what you initially think of without any scientific knowledge at all, I think the issue and why Clarke addressed it in the novel, and it sounds like he was right in saying it wasn't a big deal, is that the spaceship is moving is so fast.
Right.
Like really, 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 really fast.
Right.
And so that's what the initial thought is, that even something so small moving so fast
Right.
would do big damage.
Yeah.
But apparently no.
No, like not less like a physical damage, and more probably like it would send like, you know, the electrical things into haywire.
Okay.
You know, like that's the bigger concern.
Right.
In reality.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, obviously if you hit like a really big, you know,
Yeah.
but I think really it's not a big deal because it's so well plotted and you know, like if we were right now to send a spaceship out into, you know, like to Mars, like it's happening in the book, NASA and everyone would know exactly where everything was, and we would avoid it all.
You can track things that are big enough to do damage, I guess you could probably
and
track.
basically like meteoroids are like they come from like in space dust and cloud, you know, space clouds and things they come from asteroids and comets, like things that are very easily trackable.
Right.
So it's like you like follow that and like see what
like a debris
what gets,
trail.
Yeah, exactly. See what gets left behind and you know stuff like that. So
I don't think of these things. That's why I'm not an astronaut.
Yeah.
Or an engineer for NASA.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a question.
What?
There's a part early in the novel where one of the jokes early in the novel is that Martin Gibson gets sick. Actually, before the novel starts, it sounds like he throws up. Because then the novel opens with the captain and somebody else talking about like who's going to clean up my ship.
Oh,
It's very puzzling, said the MO, thoughtfully, as the now quiescent author was propelled through the airlock. He's passed his medical tests, okay? And of course, he'll have had the usual injections before leaving Earth. It must be psychosomatic. I don't care what it is, complained the pilot bitterly as he followed the cortege into the heart of the Space Station 1. All I want to know is, who's going to clean up my ship? No one seemed inclined to answer this heartfelt question, least of all Martin Gibson, who was only vaguely conscious of white walls drifting by his field of vision. Then, slowly, there was a sensation of increasing weight, and a warm, caressing glow began to steal through his limbs. Presently he became fully aware of his surroundings. He was in a hospital ward, and a battery of infrared lamps was bathing him with a glorious, enervating warmth that sank through his flesh to the very bones. "Well?" said the medical officer presently. Gibson grinned feebly. "I'm sorry about this. Is it going to happen again? I don't know how it happened the first time. It's very unusual. The drugs we have are now supposed to be infallible." "I think it was my own fault," said Gibson apologetically. "You see, I've gotten a rather powerful imagination, and I started thinking about the symptoms of space sickness. In quite an objective sort of way, of course. But before I knew what had happened." "Well, just stop it," ordered the doctor sharply, "or we'll have to send you right back to Earth. You can't do this sort of thing if you're going to Mars. There wouldn't be much left of you after 3 months." A shudder passed through Gibson's tortured frame, but he was rapidly recovering, and already the nightmare of the last hour was fading into the past.
yeah, no, because he takes off. Well, the first problem is, remember, he passes out on the launch. So when he gets launched from Earth to, where's he going?
The moon.
The moon, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
When he takes his first launch, he like passes out.
Okay.
And then he comes to.
Yeah.
But then after that, he then passes out again, but it's because he got sick.
Okay. Doesn't he throw up though? Because the
yeah.
guy says,
"Oh yeah,
"Who's gonna
definitely,
clean up
yeah."
my
Not
shit?"
the first time, but the
Right,
second
right.
time.
Yeah,
So he definitely like gets hit hard by like space travel from the very beginning.
Yeah. So one of my questions, and Amy volunteered to look up the real world answer, is: do astronauts take drugs to reduce space sickness? Because he says those like space sickness drugs.
Right. They talk
Like
about
that
that.
you just take a pill and you're not affected by space sickness. But like,
Right.
what did you find in reality?
So no, that's not the case. That's something that we have to figure out in order to allow commercial space travel.
Actually, yeah, because now that I'm thinking about it, like that's the point of all the tests.
Yes.
Is
So
to
right.
see if you're fit enough to do something. Okay.
Exactly. So it's like so space sickness is a real thing. It's called space adaptation syndrome. And I really had a hard time figuring out what the technical scientific difference between space sickness and terrestrial sickness, which is car sick, seasick, that kind of stuff. It's two totally different things because
That's called motion sickness, right?
yeah, motion sickness.
Okay.
Well, motion sickness is part of space sickness,
Okay,
but it's like the reason I was trying to figure it out. It's like the reason, just the wording was tough for me. Like there's a difference. It's like the opposite. So like the reason why it's like, I don't even want to even try to explain it because I won't get it right. But they're different things. So motion sickness is a part of space sickness, but the real problem with space is the loss of gravity. That's where you're going to get the sickness from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it turns out it's like experienced by like nearly half of the astronauts, like space travelers.
So there are there drugs?
Well, there are drugs in the sense that there's like, you know, you can take anti-nausea medication. Okay. You could take like regular like medicine that helps motion sickness on Earth.
Gotcha.
But really the goal is to be able to adapt like naturally.
Right.
Because the side effects of those drugs are not things that you want in space, which is like, you know,
yeah, like don't operate machinery.
Yeah, exactly. It's like sleepiness
like
and
that's exactly
you know,
what I'm doing.
Right, totally.
I'm operating the most complicated
yes,
machinery
exactly.
ever.
Yeah. So it's like they try not to do that. However, I did read that they typically do put on anti-nausea patches when they have spacesuits on. Because if you throw up in a spacesuit,
Yep.
it could be like a fatal mistake.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know.
A disgusting fatal mistake.
Yeah. So there are definitely ways to treat it. But really, like, I mean, they've tried like everything from like, you know, yoga to like, you know, like mentally focusing and, you know, like a blinder idea. But like really it's like, it's just like close your eyes and in 1 to 4 days, you'll hopefully get over it.
Ugh.
I know. But it was very interesting that they were saying that like because it is different from like motion sickness on Earth, if you do have motion sickness and seasickness, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to feel ill
On a spaceship. Okay.
But also they found out too that you can be totally fine because like doing all the tests, you can be totally fine, like acclimating to all the tests, doing like zero gravity tests and all that stuff. You can be totally fine. And then you actually get up there and you're not fine.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is that it's something, like you said, all the tests that all the astronauts go through to, you know, like understand what's going to happen to them and, you know, acclimate and make sure that all of that you wouldn't be able to do that if you were offering commercial spaceflight.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
right. So they have to come up with a more efficient way to help people with that. So I think probably
it sounds like
in the book.
It sounds like Clarke was right.
Yeah.
Because the dude still threw up.
Right. Exactly. So they're going to need to figure something out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So clearly, yeah. So they still need to figure shit out, and so do we.
Right, exactly.
Okay. It's almost, and this is not the same, but maybe it has to do with like the 0G thing. Is that like I've flown on plenty of commercial airplanes in my life, but I've told you this story. I won't tell it in full detail, but when I was in Peru, they have the Nazca lines, which are things that they're best seen from the sky.
Yeah.
So we went there. And you get in a little tiny airplane to fly over the Nazca lines and look at them. And I had never been in like a single engine airplane. It was like 6 total seats.
Right.
And I freaked out. Like, I could not handle being in that little tiny airplane.
Yeah.
And like made the pilot land and everything. Long story. But the point is, looking back, the reason I freaked out, I didn't freak out. I just like could not be there. I had to land.
Yeah.
Is because even though we live in a 3-dimensional world, gravity essentially makes your world 2-dimensional. Because if gravity is in effect, you can't go up. You can only go down. And if the ground is below you, you're not going any lower than that. So you're moving forward and backwards. You're moving left and right.
Right.
You're not going up and down.
Yeah.
When you're in a little tiny airplane, you feel all the dimensions, dude.
Yeah.
There's up and there's down. It just hit me like, wait, like I'm in a completely 3-dimensional world right now, and I have zero control over which direction I go in. Yeah. So my brain and my stomach just are not okay with this.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in a giant airplane, you just don't feel it.
Yeah, it's much,
I mean, some people do, maybe, but
it's much stable. It's more stable. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I can imagine, dude, like, I mean, that's the thing. I'd never been in a plane before, a little plane like that, so I didn't know.
Right.
If you're an astronaut or any human and you've never been in 0G, you're not going to know how your body's going to react.
Well, it's also interesting, too, because you just mentioned both a physical and mental, like, reaction to it. So it's funny because, I mean, space sickness that he's talking about, that Arthur C. Clarke is talking about in the book, and what I research is purely physical. So I do wonder what like the mental implications, like if anyone has like, existential crisis.
I'm sure looking down at the Earth for the first time, it's like, your eyes, it's just something your eyeballs have never seen before.
Right.
Like if all your senses together, probably just tweaks your brain out.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably just like, where are we?
Yeah.
Not okay with this.
I can't even imagine.
All right, so number 2. So there's a part in the novel where Clarke makes a note to say that all the characters traveling through space in the spaceship have their heads shaved.
I'm still not quite clear, said Owen Bradley, the electronics officer. What we are supposed to do with the fellow when we've got him. Whose bright idea was this anyway? I was coming to that, said Captain Norden, running his hands over where his magnificent blonde hair had been only a few days before. Spaceships seldom carry professional barbers, and though there are always plenty of eager amateurs, one prefers to put off the evil day as long as possible.
I would assume because, like, your hair is floating around, and it could cause a problem.
Yeah.
Because normally hair just goes down because of gravity.
Right.
So I wanted to know, what are the rules for hair in space? Does long hair become a problem?
Yeah.
So what I found was, no, it's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it became an issue, the reason anyone ever started talking about it in the public is because of this picture, which I will show you, Amy. Hold on. Okay, you just described this photo.
Oh my goodness. That is a lot of hair. So it's basically like Bride of Frankenstein, only it's like her hair is just like swooshed all out around her. Oh, like have you seen those videos where those stupid videos where like you lay down and people hairspray, like it'll be like a person laying down with their hair all spread around them, and they put hairspray in it, and then they stand up and it's like sticking out
like the back of a triceratops head.
Yes, totally. That is wild. That's a lot of hair.
Yeah. So I said this published photo caused some engineers outside of NASA to comment that hair like this could be dangerous around equipment, moving parts on the ISS, but NASA never took it seriously, and there have been no documented issues with long hair in space. Something interesting here, and so whenever you see like aliens in movies, they're always bald.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Some research done in 0G in the ISS suggests that hair stops growing in 0G.
Interesting.
Right? So like eventually I feel like if we all lived in space, we would eventually all be bald.
Wow.
Yeah. So the reason I thought, and then even like if you didn't completely shave your head, I feel like that would be even worse because then you'd have little tiny hairs. Like if you rubbed your head
Oh, yeah.
floating around, getting in the machinery.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like what you said in episode 1 about moon dust. Mm-hmm. How moon dust can be
Gets everywhere.
bad,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
little tiny hairs I
Yeah.
feel like would be so bad. But I
Well,
guess
if we're
they're
gonna,
not.
if we're gonna do, I mean, maybe we need to, delve into, what about like when your skin sheds?
Oh, yeah. Maybe that's small enough. I don't know. But
Hopefully, they have really, really good air filters, which they have to.
well, dude,
Right?
listen to this. Hair could be useful in space.
What? Why?
I watched a video of a woman on the ISS
Yeah.
who took out one strand of hair, and basically, it'll be hard to to audibly explain this. There was like a pole,
Yeah.
and she took the strand of hair and pushed it like horizontally against the pole,
Yeah.
and pushed, and it propelled her backwards.
Actually,
That's how easy it is to move an object in zero G. She
what's so
propelled
funny?
herself with a single strand of hair.
That's so funny because remember in the book, there's the part where they talk about, where one of the guys is like one of the crew members is goofing around on the ship and he's like, shooting that, like anchor thing.
The dart gun?
Yeah, the dart with
I
like
love
the
that.
little
the
thing.
harpoon.
Yeah, and then he tells a story about how he had to, the way to get, if you get stuck in a big area and you can't
Oh,
get to the
yeah.
ball and you have to spit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you spit, the motion will push you back.
Right, so like the spit coming out, you'll go back.
Yeah.
Like I was like, what?
Yeah. It's like the best place to explore whatever that rule is, that scientific rule. Every action has a reaction or something. What is that? I sound like an idiot.
Yeah, no, I mean, every has an equal or
Equal and something, whatever. I'll edit that part out.
just a reminder, we like science fiction,
Yeah.
not science.
Science fiction. Okay, number 4. Are there snow, plants, moisture, or water on Mars?
Yeah, because like I said, in the book, when he hits Mars, like when he gets off Mars, one of the first things he talks about is the vegetation.
Yeah. And they talk about in the novel like that even though they are engaged in the novel in terraforming, or at least trying to terraform, they talk about how the plants were there when they got there.
Yeah.
And it's the plants in the book are pretty interesting in that, like, because there's no oxygen in the air, but there's oxygen in the soil.
Yeah.
So that the plants are entirely dependent on sunlight and what they get out of the soil.
Yes.
It has like nothing to do with the air.
Right.
The way terrestrial plants are like take in CO2 and give out oxygen.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all.
Yeah.
I have here there is ice on Mars, but it's dry ice, frozen carbon dioxide, not water. Scientists think that it snows, but the snow evaporates before it hits the ground. There are clouds on Mars. So this is weird. They say that Mars emerged from an ice age 400,000 years ago. And you know what I have to say about that? How the fuck do you know that?
Isn't it from like the samples they've taken?
I don't know. Just how do you know that?
I don't know.
I can't imagine
I don't know.
how you know that. I mean, I'm not trying to balk at science here, dude. Like, I love science. Like, I'm all for things that can be proven. But it's like, I mean, if you're on Earth studying the Earth for as long as humans have ever been curious, I could see how you could eventually, through technology and experience and knowledge, come to the conclusion that, yes, there was an ice age 12,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's like, dude, no human has ever even been there.
Yeah,
And
but-
you know when they came out of an ice age?
Yeah, but like so many rovers and stuff have been.
But have they brought dirt back to Earth?
No,
And
I don't think so.
So we're relying entirely on
The data
what a
that
rover
they've
can do to tell
Yeah.
you exactly how many years ago was an ice age. It
Yes.
just seems amazing.
I know.
Sometimes I learn things and I just go, man, how do you know that?
Yeah, I know.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Not that it matters.
I just recently saw read a little bit about there's a mission on Mars that's been going on for a couple of years, and one of the goals was to drill a like drill into the ground, like farther than they've ever been able to do anything.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they, after trying and trying and trying, they've realized that they just can't do it because it's like as they're doing, like as they're like drilling, like there's like, you know, like the sand and, you know, whatever it's the earth
Dust.
is made out of is like contaminating like all the parts of the rover or whatever, you know, the machine that is drilling, and it's just not, so it's like after all this like time they thought they were gonna have a first and they're not.
Too bad.
I know.
You need boots on the ground, man.
I know.
Okay, so I got a few more facts about the...
Wait, so the answer is there's no vegetation.
On Mars?
Yeah.
No.
No.
There are none.
There's nothing.
Unless we just, I don't know, hidden in some cave somewhere.
Right.
So, well, this says right here, no plants have ever grown on Mars. How do you know that? The soil is, in fact... Once again, I wrote because how do you know that no plants have ever grown on Mars? The soil is in fact perfect for growing certain plants.
Huh.
Just like in the book. In a simulation, kale, carrots, lettuce, sweet potatoes, onion, dandelions, and hops have all grown extremely well in simulated Martian soil.
Do they simulate everything, like the soil and like the atmosphere, and like did they?
Well, yeah, it says
that's so cool.
All grown under in simulated Martian soil under Mars-like conditions.
That's wild.
So I guess we'll know what we'll be eating. I like sweet potatoes, so I'd be down.
Yeah, kale's delicious.
All right, number 5. This one's for you. What color is the sky on Mars?
So for long time, everyone thought it was red.
The sky?
Yeah, red.
Okay.
Or like a pinkish color. But it's actually more of a brownish gray, turning to like a kind of described as butterscotch color.
Really? So
Yeah.
no blue?
Well, right around right around the sun, like the edges of where you see the sun, there would be blue around that.
Weird.
Like just kind of like as like an
Halo.
edge. Yeah, like a little halo. It's like a blue halo. I did also read that like, you know, it kind of depends on like, you know, like certain times of like the Martian day, you know, like if it's like, you know, twilight, it'll be like a little bit of a different color. It even, you know,
similar to here.
Yeah, exactly, which I thought was interesting.
I love the parts in the novel too where he talks about how they fly in the jet down low.
Yeah.
And like only a couple seconds after seeing something on the horizon, it's below you.
Right.
Because you're traveling so fast and you're on a smaller sphere.
Yeah, that was
Like,
really interesting.
It's just trippy to think about.
Yeah.
5 kilometers below, the colored desert was streaking past him to the west. They were flying at what, on Earth, would have been a very low altitude, for the thinness of the Martian air made it essential to keep as near the surface as safety allowed. Gibson had never before received such an impression of sheer speed, for though he had flown in much faster machines on Earth, that had always been at heights where the ground was invisible. The nearest of the horizon added to the effect, for an object which appeared over the edge of the planet would be passing beneath a few minutes later.
All human experience is based on this planet.
Yeah, and it's fun because, like, from an Arthur C. Clarke point of view, it's like he's taking, like, the real, like, science of what we know about the planets as they truly exist and imagining and then writing what it must be like to do that, which I think is really, really fun.
That's just, I mean, yeah, it's like hard for me to put into words why I love Arthur C. Clarke, and I think I think maybe you kind of described it just like it's like real concepts,
yeah,
but in like a obviously not in like a just listing facts type of way. It's like this,
right?
Like you just get a visual sense of all these amazing things that you'll probably never see, but Clarke allows you to see it in your mind.
Yeah, and
in like the most vivid
it.
way possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun because you know that it's based it is based in reality, it's not just purely something
Yeah.
that he's coming up with. It's like, because he has the science background, he like has something to base all of this off of.
Right. All right. So number 6, I find it funny. Oh yeah. Well, we were going to explain. The second half of the novel is he gets to Mars, and he lives in Port Lowell, which is the biggest city on Mars, which is, there's what, like 10,000 people? 2,000, I think?
Yeah.
I think 2,000 live in Port Lowell.
Yeah, it's not very many.
Yeah. So there's like a backdrop to this novel where Mars wants to be independent from Earth, but isn't quite there yet. Like there's minor tension between Earth and Mars.
Yes.
Like Mars is still kind of trying to convince Earth that it is worthwhile to be there.
Yeah.
Is sort of a backdrop to the novel. It's not a major conflict, but it's there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it kind of has to do with like his Gibson, like his role sort of in a way, because they're like, everyone's kind of like afraid to like say certain things around him, like,
right,
they're a little like, because they don't want him to report like negative things about, or they want him to, like they're hoping that he'll like be on their side.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing about this novel. It's like such a major jump from Prelude to Space in that there's like actual intrigue in this novel. Like there's a lot of mystery. You find out at the end what the mystery is all about. But like you mentioned, like at one point they're supposed to land on Phobos, and then without any real reason, in like a secretive, sketchy way, they're sent to Deimos instead.
Yeah.
And then, like, later in the novel, they try to go to this other place while they're on Mars, and they're, like, denied entry. Or, like, that one guy goes in, and when he comes out, he, like, won't tell them what he saw.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's like a secret laboratory.
Yeah, because they stumble upon it by mistake. Yeah, when they're driving around exploring.
So there's a little mystery and intrigue in this novel, which is nice, because it's not in Prelude to Space at all.
Yeah.
So then, like, I mean... So did you like the second half better than the first half?
It was a little slow getting into, because I feel like it was just like a lot of like explaining, like just describing and explaining and, talking about, this and that. But then once the mystery stuff kind of really started happening, like all the secrets and everything,
right.
I was definitely intrigued. And then, of course, it culminates in when they're going to, in the aircraft, going to the other port. I can't remember the name of it.
I can't either.
Yeah, it was like a long name. When they're going to the other port, and then they crash, they get lost. And then I was like really interested.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like when they crash, I think is when I started to really remember this novel from the first time I read it, probably like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I remember all this stuff now." Like, so basically, they're going from where they like live to this other little city somewhere on Mars, and they crash. They're in like a little jet. All this stuff is interesting. We don't have to get into it. If you want to read the novel, like there's plenty of interesting stuff we're not talking about.
Definitely.
But like the jet crashes, and another thing, again, it's a step up for ACC for like storytelling. Is that like they like something that happens earlier in the novel, like something to do with the flash on his camera, ends up being the one thing that saves them, that allows the satellites to see them. Like the satellite is looking down. It's like, we see like these flashes. Like, what's that? It's like it was the civilians' camera that allowed them to be rescued.
Right.
Which is, I mean, it's not groundbreaking in storytelling, but at least it's like an element of storytelling that sometimes Clarke leaves out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we'll just spoil it. Who cares? They meet aliens. There's little aliens that they discover.
Yeah,
and like,
little Martians.
Yeah, like little Martians. And I remember that vividly, too. I very much remember Clarke's imagining Martians to basically be kangaroos.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. Like, they're shaped like kangaroos. They hop around.
Well, they're not, but remember, they're kind of like fat.
Don't they have beaks?
Yeah, they have their mouths are 3 little beaks, and there was no nose.
Okay.
Remember? But they had those big eyes.
Right.
And like they described like weren't they like floppy, like almost transparent ears?
Yeah.
In that moment, centuries of fantasy and legend were swept away. All man's dreams of neighbors not unlike himself vanished into limbo. With them, unlamented, went Wells' tentacled monstrosities and the other legions of crawling nightmare horrors. And there vanished also the myth of coldly inhuman intelligences which might look down dispassionately on man from their fabulous heights of wisdom, and might brush him aside with no more malice than he himself might destroy a creeping insect. There were 10 of the creatures in the glade, and they were all too busy eating to take any notice of the intruders. In appearance, they resembled very plump kangaroos. Their almost spherical bodies balanced on 2 large, slender hind limbs. They were hairless, and their skin had a curious, waxy sheen like a polished leather. 2 thin forearms, which seemed to be completely flexible, sprouted from the upper part of the body and ended in tiny hands, like the claws of a bird. Too small and feeble, one would have thought, to have been of much practical use. Their heads were set directly on the trunk with no suspicion of a neck, and bore 2 large pale eyes with wide pupils. There were no nostrils, only a very odd triangular mouth with 3 stubby bills which were making short work of the foliage. A pair of large, almost transparent ears hung limply from the head, twitching occasionally and sometimes folding themselves into trumpets which looked as if they might be extremely efficient sound detectors, even in this thin atmosphere. The largest of the beasts was about as tall as Hilton, but all the others were considerably smaller. One baby less than a meter high could only be described by the overworked adjective cute. It was hopping excitedly about in an effort to reach the more succulent leaves, and from time to time emitted thin, piping cries which were irresistibly pathetic.
And but they're like big, like they're round,
Right.
like they're like kind of chubby, like they're not like svelte like a kangaroo.
Right.
You know, because
exactly.
remember, there's the joke about how like they like something. There's like some joke about how they kind of look like him and Gibson and the Martian kind of look
alike.
alike.
Because they're a little chubby.
Yeah, exactly. But definitely, but they're animals.
Yeah.
They're not like, you know, like it's funny because we always think of Martians as being like, I think
Intelligent.
I think we forget all the time. We forget all the time that we're animals.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And so, but these are like, you know, like the equivalent of like, you know, kangaroos or dogs.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how they refer to the one that follows Martin back to the ship. They refer to him as a pet.
Why is that funny?
Because like it's then like they're like it's just interesting because it's like they're like I don't think that like we would. I feel like we wouldn't do that, but maybe we would. Like if we went to Mars and we found life on Mars, I feel like we would hold it at a higher regard than calling it a pet.
Yeah. But I agree. But at the same time, this Mars is a different Mars from the one that exists in reality. Because this Mars, you get there and you find plants.
Yeah.
You're going to maybe be more expectant to find
animals. Yeah.
Whereas in our world, in our universe now, Mars is totally dead.
Right.
So if you get there and you find this animal living off apparently nothing, you'd be like, that thing is very special.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I mean, it's just a different maybe perspective.
Yeah.
So one of the things in the novel that's like, it sticks out like a very sore thumb is when he makes the claim that, and the reason it's so problematic in my opinion is because he uses it as like a dramatic moment, and it's a moment that's been done before in plenty of movies and books and whatever, where like you're aware of your surroundings, like your surroundings are the way they should be, but then something happens that's different, but in your mind, you don't acknowledge it until you realize that it shouldn't be there. And the moment is in the novel where they're flying the jet and they see in front of them, they see like red sand.
Yeah.
So in his mind, he goes, that's just a mountain. But then it's like, it's a line. It gets its own paragraph.
Oh.
There are no mountains on Mars. So it's like, oh, that's just a mountain. That's normal. But then, wait, I'm not in a place where mountains exist.
Oh,
so that's
right.
not normal. What
Right.
is it? It's a sandstorm.
Right.
That causes
okay.
them to crash.
Yeah.
Some change in the failing light must have woken him. For a moment, it was impossible to believe that he was not still dreaming. He could only sit and stare, paralyzed with sheer astonishment. No longer was he looking out across a flat, almost featureless landscape meeting the deep blue of the sky at the far horizon. Desert and horizon had both vanished, in their place towards a range of crimson mountains reaching north and south as far as the eye could follow. The last rays of the setting sun caught their peaks and bequeathed to them its dying glory. Already the foothills were lost in the night that was sweeping onwards to the west. For long seconds, the splendor of the scene robbed it of all reality and hence all menace. Then Gibson awoke from his trance, realizing in one dreadful instant that they were flying far too low to clear those Himalayan peaks. The sense of utter panic lasted only a moment, to be followed at once by a far deeper terror. Gibson had remembered now what his first shock had banished from his mind. The simple fact that he should have thought of from the beginning. There were no mountains on Mars.
So the problem, did you look this up at all? Like, do you know what I'm getting at?
No.
Okay. The biggest mountain in the entire solar system is on Mars.
Really?
It's 3 times taller than Mount Everest. Okay, it's called Olympus Mons. It's so badass. You ready for this? Okay, found in the Tharsis Montes region near the Martian equator, Olympus Mons is one of a dozen large volcanoes, many of which are 10 to 100 times taller than their terrestrial counterparts. The tallest of them all towers 16 miles above the surrounding plains and stretches across 374 miles, roughly the size of the state of Arizona. In comparison, Hawaii's Mauna Loa, the tallest volcano on Earth, rises 6.3 miles above the seafloor, but its peak is only 2.6 miles above sea level. The volume contained by Olympus Mons is about 100 times that of Mauna Loa, and the Hawaiian island chain that houses the earthly volcano could fit inside its Martian counterpart.
Wow.
Olympus Mons rises 3 times higher than Earth's highest mountain, Mount Everest, whose peak is 5.5 miles above sea level. The opening at the top of the volcano is 53 miles wide. Some believe the volcano is still active and became so high because of the lesser gravity.
Wow.
And it was not discovered until 2013.
Oh, wow.
So Clarke was wrote this novel 60 years before we discovered that mountain.
So really, that could have been a mountain in the book.
Yes.
Wow.
Very much so. But it's funny because it's used as a moment of like dramatic pause, you know? It's like at the very end of the chapter. Yeah. But if you know anything about Mars,
that's
now
funny.
It's like,
right.
That's not true, my friend.
That's so funny.
So I thought that was funny.
You know, it's funny. They do he does the exact same thing with the footprints. Remember when they're following the path? They find the path.
Yes.
And he starts. It's like he describes it like they start walking like a good 6 paces before they all of a sudden were like, wait a minute, there shouldn't be footsteps here.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. He uses the same device, but in that case, it works.
Right.
Because in our world and in their world, there's no Martians.
Yeah.
They had gone only a few paces when they encountered a denser patch and had to make a detour. With the sun as a guide, there was no danger of becoming lost, especially in such a small region, and they had made no attempt to retrace their footsteps exactly. Gibson was leading the way, and finding it somewhat heavy going. He was just wondering whether to swallow his pride and change places with Jimmy when he was relieved to come across a narrow, winding track leading more or less in the right direction. To any observer, it would have been an interesting demonstration of the slowness of some mental process, for both Gibson and Jimmy had walked a good 6 paces before they had remembered the simple but shattering truth that footpaths do not usually make themselves.
So it's like you have that dramatic moment where it's like, wait a minute, a footpath means there were feet here.
Yeah.
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 So it works in that instance. I think it's funny, dude. Clarke has this way of writing about people, about things that aren't like celestial, in such a like goofy, hokey way.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
then his concepts and his visuals are so amazing and profound.
Yeah.
But like that they name it Squeak.
I know.
Like he gives this, he names the first alien ever discovered Squeak. It's like, Clarke, what are you doing, man? Why would you name it that? It's just such a dumb name.
Yeah. I imagined in my mind like a very goofy little critter.
Yeah, just like
Yeah.
hopping around.
Yeah,
Like
just-
like a little kangaroo like wearing a shirt or something.
Yeah, like just
A little cartoon character.
yeah, totally. Like I imagined it like really, really silly.
But at the same time, like his implications and like his explanation for how they can even live without oxygen is really cool. Like they get all their oxygen from the plants, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was cool. And then how they're kind of chameleons, like when they
Oh yeah, that was
turn
really interesting.
their fur
Yep.
changes color based on
Yep.
where the sun is.
Yep.
And let's talk about the ending, dude. Let's spoil it. Whatever. I don't care. What? You don't think we should spoil the ending?
Oh,
Dude,
the
it has
big secret.
Dude, it has like the same ending as 2010. Similar. Remember what happens at the end of 2010?
No.
So at the end of 2010, Odyssey 2, the monoliths, which turned monkeys into man and then man into the Star Child,
Right.
turns Jupiter into a
That's
sun.
right. Yes.
They turn Jupiter into a sun.
Yeah,
and
you're right. Okay.
And it effectively turn all of Jupiter's moons into planets.
Yes. Okay. Totally. Yes.
So
it's
spoiler alert, at the big project, the big secret in the sands of Mars, and like what the people who live on Mars are planning is to turn Phobos into a sun
yeah.
through some nuclear reaction. I don't even really know how they
Right.
do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that whole thing happened. Like that doesn't have huge implications, like on the story, really, because it's at the very end.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's just very Clarke in that it's like this crazy epic, both visual and like the implications of like imagine if we were able to pull this off. Like imagine how much things change if you all of a sudden have another star, another sun.
Right, because the point of doing it was to help facilitate creating a atmosphere faster.
Right.
Right.
To make the plants spread, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. To help the plants grow, to make to create an atmosphere.
Right.
Yeah. I wonder. You got to wonder, like, where, if he's so science minded, you got to wonder where that concept, especially if he used it in 2 books at least,
Yeah.
where that concept came from, like how, like, if and this is not something that would be quite the rabbit hole to have to delve into the science behind something like that, but I just wonder like if that is even physically feasibly possible
I doubt it, especially in the
to
novel.
alter.
Don't they? It's like the thing's gonna burn out in like 1,000 years. It's like,
Yeah.
like, what did you even do to it?
Yeah.
Wasn't it made of rock? How do you burn something made of rock for 1,000 years and trust that it won't do anything
Right.
like,
Yeah.
dangerous or crazy? Actually, I do. The last thing I want to talk about in the novel, unless you have anything else you want to say, like generally it's a pretty good book, right?
Yeah, I really liked it.
Like it wouldn't be in my top 5 Clarke novels, but if you started with this one, you would get a pretty good sense of what you're in for when it comes to Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree.
Not nearly as like epic as a 2001 or a Rama, but it's like a smaller scale of what he's so good at.
Yeah.
And you even like, I don't really want to get into it, but like he even dabbles in human relationships with that kid Jimmy.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
Like, and when you're reading that, you're just like, man, I don't care, but
it's very multi-layered.
Yeah,
you know, it's almost like it's like kind of like an experiment for, like, you know, like the whole book is kind of like an experiment for you know, how to write a science fiction novel, how to write a novel in general, like you know, playing with the people and the technology and the grand ideas and the small ideas. I mean, because there's every single one of those in there.
Yeah, and there's like zero human relationship exploration, even at all, in Prelude to Space.
Yeah, because it doesn't.
There's none of that.
Yeah.
What else? Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about this novel is, and like it. If you've come this far, if you listen to episode 1 and you're this far in episode 2, God love you. And also,
thank you.
Here is like, this is why I named it the Space Dreamers. Okay, well, the first reason I named it the Space Dreamers is that's one of the titles that Prelude to Space was briefly titled. Like at one point it was published under that name.
Okay.
But now it's Prelude to Space.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. But so basically, everyone in the Space Dreamers is a space dreamer, okay? Including the main character, including the historian. He starts out as just a historian, but at the end of the novel, he's living on the moon.
Right.
So he is a space dreamer.
Yeah.
They're like anyone living on Mars in this novel. I mean, I don't know enough about them, but I would assume they're space dreamers. They chose to live on Mars.
Yeah.
Instead of Earth.
Yeah.
And the two space streamers in this novel that I really want to identify, and I'm definitely going to have their whole passages read, you know, in post, is Martin, obviously. Like, I love the moment when Martin, it's like its own paragraph. Like, I have it marked.
Of course it was too good to last. As the colony grew, the spirit of these pioneering days would fade. Everything would become too big and too well organized. The development of the planet would be just another job of work. But for the present, it was a wonderful sensation, which a man would be lucky indeed to experience even once in his lifetime. Gibson knew it was felt by all those around him, yet he could not share it. He was an outsider. That was the role he had always preferred to play, and now he had played it long enough. If it was not too late, he wanted to join in the game. That was the moment, if indeed there was such a single point in time, when Martin Gibson changed his allegiance from Earth to Mars. No one ever knew, even those beside him. If they noticed anything at all, we were aware only that for a few seconds he had stopped singing, but had now joined in the chorus again with redoubled vigor.
I love that.
He became a space dreamer right there.
Right.
He was like, fuck Earth.
Yep.
And then another character points it out and says, when you started, we were they. Now we're we. Not very well put, perhaps, but I think my point's clear.
Yes.
Meaning they, talking about people who live on Mars.
Yes.
Now, and then at a certain point in the novel, he starts saying we when he refers to people who live on Mars, not they.
Right.
Well, dude, let's talk about the guy who went to Saturn.
Oh, yeah, he's interesting.
Because, like, that's probably my favorite part of the novel, is hearing his story. Like, that part is so gorgeous.
Yeah, I wish ACC had written written his story. That would have been an interesting one.
Yeah,
it sounds
exactly.
pretty epic.
Yeah. What do you got?
Well, I think my favorite paragraph about Gibson is this. It's actually the very beginning, when he is when he's in Ares, the shuttle that's going to take him from the moon to
Mars.
Well, this is it, thought Gibson. Down there is all my past life, and the lives of all my ancestors, back to the first blob of jelly in the first primeval sea. No colonist or explorer setting sail from his native land ever left so much behind as I'm leaving now. Down beneath those clouds lies the whole of human history, Soon I shall be able to eclipse with my little finger what was, until a lifetime ago, all of man's dominion and everything that his art had saved from time. This inexorable drawing away from the known into the unknown had almost the finality of death. Thus must the naked soul, leaving all its treasures behind it, go out at last into the darkness and the night.
Love that.
Yeah, I marked that. I marked that paragraph too.
Love that.
Yeah. That reminds me of when I was in high school, okay? I was introduced in a class to the concept of existentialism.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I did this like multimedia, like it wasn't just a written essay. It was like it was an essay with like pictures and diagrams and all these different things. And one of the things I said was like, there's a photo that a spacecraft took and sent back to Earth. And it's so far away from Earth that the Earth encompasses the amount of space that one pixel takes up. And if like it's similar to what he's saying, that you can cover it with your fingernail. Like there are billions upon billions of people that have existed on this planet who all have had billions upon billions of different things that they care about and hate and love and this and that and leads to the history of mankind and all these things, and they all fit in a pixel.
It's wild.
It's insane. All you have to do, man, is change your perspective, and you realize that like it either means nothing or it means everything. And Clarke was pointing that out in the 50s, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Clarke is just as much a philosopher as he is a scientist and a writer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or at least his effect on his reader.
There's actually a part that I had marked that's like almost exactly what it's when he it says not far away floated an identically shaped but much smaller and fainter crescent, and Gibson could distinctly see some of the familiar craters along its edge. They formed a beautiful couple, the twin planets Earth and Moon, but somehow they seemed too remote and ethereal to give him any feeling of homesickness or regret for all that he had left behind.
Yeah.
Like
it's so
profound.
It's a feeling that like less than 20 people can recall in all of human history, to look at Earth from outside of Earth.
Yeah.
A very small handful of people can do that, can recall that memory.
Right.
It's just crazy.
But I think it's also interesting that through works of fiction,
yeah,
we can like get a taste of that.
Right.
You know, like what it must be like.
Yeah. And especially, and like for someone to do it so well who's never done it.
Yeah.
To write about it so well who's never even done it. Like,
oh, yeah.
Dude, Clarke was tapping into something. I don't know. Like, it's just we are all just culminations of everything we've ever lived through, you know?
Right.
Like, what kind of fucking stew led to Arthur C. Clarke's brain? I can't even imagine, dude. Just crazy. I just love the dude.
Yeah.
But here's another example. So, I'll probably have a voiceover like reading the part that leads up to this part, but the actual part that really like this is, and it's what I sent this to you already, so you've already heard this, but
yeah,
I want to comment on it. In this universe, in the universe of the novel, basically, the furthest man has ever been is to Saturn, and Martin Gibson is with one of the people who was on that mission, and he tells the whole story of how that mission was really, really bad, and only him and one other person survived.
I thought it was two other people.
Where only him and two other people survived. Yeah. So, the point is, it was really bad, and people died, and it was just not a good mission.
Yeah.
And so, but then at the end of it, this character says,
"Are you surprised that I want to go to Saturn again? What I'd like to do is to get really close this time. And by that, I mean within 1,000 kilometers. It should be quite safe and wouldn't take much power. All you need to do is go into a parabolic orbit and let yourself fall in like a comet going round the sun. Of course, you'd only spend a few minutes actually close to Saturn, but you could get a lot of records in that time. And I want to land on Mimas again. and see that great shining crescent reaching halfway up the sky. It'll be worth the journey just to watch Saturn waxing and waning, and to see the storms chasing themselves round his equator. Yes, it would be worth it, even if I didn't get back this time.
Like, that is the definition of a space dreamer. Right? Do you agree?
Yeah, it's incredible.
Like, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, like, what I mean by that is, like, if you're a person on Earth and you'll never have the opportunity to go to space, but you really want to, I feel like that is your attitude. Like, I just want to see it with my own eyes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And, like there are those videos, I don't know if you've ever seen videos, like, on YouTube where they kind of show, it's just like, it's a picture of Earth looking at the sky, and they show you what each planet would look like if they were where the moon is.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
yeah,
it's like, obviously it wouldn't work that way because of gravity and orbits and all that stuff, but to just look up and see something that big in the sky.
Yeah.
Like, when the moon is, like, big, you know, sometimes the moon appears large in the sky. Dude, you stop and you look at it.
Yeah.
Because you don't get to see it like that in such detail.
Right.
And, like, just imagine being on, like, a moon of Jupiter. Did you know about the Great Eye, the Great Red Eye on Jupiter?
I mean, I know what you're talking about, but
it's a storm on Jupiter that's been storming for like 1,000 years. 3 Earths fit in that one storm.
Oh my God.
Like, imagine seeing that.
Yeah.
From only like a couple 100 million miles away in a clear sky. I would never look at social media again. But actually, I take that back. Probably, like, if that happened, like, 1 year into it, people would be like, whatever.
Yeah.
No, it's like, dude, it's like, okay, here's an example of, like, okay, this is actually perfect. You wouldn't think it would be perfect, but it is. A perfect example of a movie that is not even really science fiction, but has a fantasy element in it that everyone acts like it's normal.
What?
And again, it's just like, it's a really good acknowledgement of, like, you need to explain certain things for crazy things to exist in our world.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Ted?
Yeah.
With the teddy bear?
Yeah.
Okay. The whole opening explains how this teddy bear, like, became a talking teddy bear.
Yeah.
And who his owner is and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, the narrator goes, it's like, and just like everything else, eventually nobody gives a shit.
Oh, yeah.
And then it cuts and it's just, he's just a talking bear who smokes weed and drinks and dates girls. You know what I mean? It's like, eventually no one gives a shit.
Yeah, like what was wild and crazy at one point and just mind-blowing becomes the norm, and we acclimate to it.
I mean, dude, I'm sure, and it's cliche to make fun of kids, but, like, I'm sure there are, like, teenagers who know nothing, like, who don't know that, like that we went to the moon.
Oh, there have to be people out there
that just don't even know.
Yeah, in the United States.
Not that they don't care, they just don't know because nobody talks about it anymore.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, like, at some point, someone says something and they go, wow, that really happened?
Yeah. Or they'd be like Dumb and Dumber, remember?
Yeah.
When there's, like, that vintage newspaper. Yeah. We landed on the moon! Yay!
But it's just like anything. Like I was up in the mountains, a couple weekends ago, and every time I'm in the mountains, I'm always like, imagine waking up and seeing this view every morning, you know? And it's like, then I stop and I think, and I'd be like, I wonder at what point I'd just get used to it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it depends, but certainly eventually you would.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like a matter of time.
Yeah. And so I think that's interesting because it's like, you know, like, where, like, every time you make an advancement, if you were constantly in awe of it, you would never continue.
True. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you're right.
So it's like, you know, like, he's still in awe of Saturn because he didn't get enough of it.
Right.
But once you get enough of it, then where are you going to go from there?
Pluto. Neptune. Dude, actually, okay, this is not the same, but it's like, that's another reason I love Ad Astra. There are so many movies about Mars. There are so many, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
in that movie, he's like going to Neptune. It's like, what? Big budget movie, big budget sci-fi movie, and we're going to Neptune? Fucking sign me up, dude. I don't know what Neptune looks like with a $200 million budget. Let's see it. You know what I mean?
Awesome, yeah.
I've seen Mars in plenty of big Hollywood movies.
Lots of movies.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I do like my idea in the beginning of this, the whole reason to do this podcast was to like kind of create this connected world that Clarke created. Again, he didn't do it he's not making a connected universe, like a shared universe.
Right.
But the furthest thing they discuss in Prelude to Space is, hey man, the next step after the moon is Mars. And here we are.
Right.
The second novel.
Yeah.
That's where we are. We're on Mars, and this dude thinking about Saturn. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't think I don't remember the next novel well enough to know if it
What's the title of the next one?
Islands in the Sky.
Oh, okay.
Dude, okay, again, I did this in the first episode
Yeah.
talking about the gimmick of this book.
Right.
The gimmick of the next one, dude, is so good. So
Really?
it's about a kid who wins a competition, and the prize for winning the competition is you can visit anywhere on the earth. And so he finds a way to finagle that definition
Yeah.
that the earth counts as like a little bit above it.
Yeah.
So there's one spaceship or space station that is within that limit.
Oh.
And so that's where he wants to go.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So like through like a loophole,
Right.
he figures out that counts as on Earth.
Yeah.
So they send him to space.
That's a great gimmick.
Yeah. And that's where it all starts.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So let's wrap up like talking about the novel, and then we're talking about Terminator. You're not getting out of that.
Of course.
And I still don't even know what she thinks of it, dude. But anyway, okay. So, yeah, the novel, a lot better than. As much as I love Arthur C. Clarke, and this whole thing's about Arthur C. Clarke, I'm not going to go easy on him when he fucks up. This novel is so much better than Prelude to Space. It's so much better. It's not quite at the level of, like I said, 2001, Rendezvous with Rama, Fountains of Paradise, all the like the super, super good ones, Childhood's End, which is coming up, episode 4, don't miss it. But it's good. It's really good. And if you started here, I don't advise you start here, but if you do, you won't be led astray.
Definitely not. It's a great story.
Yeah.
Definitely a great story.
Yeah. And only a couple, mistakes. Like there are no mountains on Mars.
Yeah.
But if that just leads you to look up pictures of Olympus Mons, then good.
Right.
Because it's amazing, and you should look at it. It's fucking crazy. Hi, Space Dreamers. Sorry to interrupt the podcast yet again, but right now I have an extremely important announcement for you. We all know that monoliths are full of stars, but the stars are full of opportunities.
The President, in his last message to all free peoples of the Earth, strongly recommends that the planet Venus be opened for settlement, and there is no doubt that laws will soon pass declaring the unoccupied lands on Venus, that garden of the solar system, open for homestead and preemption. In view of the early opening of Earth's sister planet, it is necessary for those who would improve the opportunity to secure free land and homes in this magnificent country to be prepared to start as soon as the planet is declared to be subject to homestead entry. The rush will be great, and early comers will have every advantage. All citizens of Earth 21 years of age or over will be entitled to 160 acres. Open your mind, broaden your horizons, and fire up your FTL drives. Colonization of the greater solar system is about to begin.
So, yeah. Okay, let's talk about Terminator.
Yeah.
So last episode, we talked about Tenet a little bit and like time travel and the Terminator. I mean, I want to talk about the Terminator just because I like it. It's a good movie. It has a bunch of sci-fi concepts all in one movie. AI, robots, time travel, like destiny, fate.
They're not robots. They're cyborgs.
That's right. Cybernetic organisms. And it's just like so many things.
Which actually, technically, isn't that what a Cylon is?
What's
A cybernetic organism.
Cylon? Well, what's the lon? Cyborg means cybernetic organism. Cyborg. So Cylon would be cybernetic lon? What's lon? What?
I don't know. But isn't that what, like, if I understand it's a combination.
Cybernetic long
No,
johns?
I'm saying, oh my God. No, I'm just saying a Cylon is a cyborg.
Yeah, well, no.
They're,
Well, okay, in Terminator, it's a robot surrounded by living
right.
flesh.
Yes.
They say in PSG, they're indistinguishable.
Yeah, because
if they weren't,
because it's in the DNA. Isn't that what it is? When he talks originally about like how he figures out, how he identifies, they have to like when they find the first Cylon, they like have to identify like how it is, and the only way they can tell is by going like deep into like the
genes,
or DNA or the tissue or something like that.
Okay,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if Cylons were detectable, were just like Terminators, then you could just cut their arm and be like, "Is there metal under there?" No,
yeah, maybe
then
they're
you're good.
Maybe they're a more advanced.
You could just
form.
X-ray them.
An advanced form.
Yeah, but there's no. I don't think there's any metal on a Cylon, and a humanoid Cylon. It's not a robot. Well, you have to look up what's the definition of cybernetic.
I don't know.
That's what you'd have to look up.
Yeah, but that's what they say. But there's like that. That's like the whole scene. There's a scene where she's like, "Are they robots?" And he's like, "No, they're cyborgs."
Oh, okay.
So they're not robots.
No, of course not.
So that's what
the
I'm saying.
Centurions are robots, but
So it's like a Cylon would be a more advanced form. It's like the next step after like just a
Terminator.
Like a machine covered in a living shell.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So now the living shell and the machine are like one, like they're combined.
I
Is
got
what
you.
is the Cylon part?
Yes.
Because remember, and they call them toasters. So they're definitely machines in a sense.
Of course. I know. I agree. And yeah. Okay, but wait. So certain things just get stuck in the pop culture. Like, and this is obviously relevant to science fiction because everyone on the planet, not everyone on the planet, everyone knows about Star Wars, right? That's sci-fi. That's pop culture.
Yeah.
I am your father. If you say that,
Yeah.
everyone knows you're talking about Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, like, it's fun to go back. And the other thing is Terminator 2 is so much more of a popular and in the pop culture movie. It's widely considered like one of the greatest sequels ever made.
Yeah.
That and Aliens, both directed by James Cameron.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to go back and watch the Terminator because we all know about Judgment Day. Terminator 2 is called Terminator 2 Judgment Day. We all know about Judgment Day, and it's just fun if you're able to go back and watch The Terminator and just erase all your knowledge of Terminator lore and just watch that movie as a single movie, like without all that extra shit. Like, I think it's so good, dude. It's so, like, it's just fun to hear it from Reese's mouth about what happens in the future.
So you keep saying we all. I don't know anything about Terminator.
Well, okay.
Like, I have not seen. This is the first one I've ever seen.
Shut up. You've seen Terminator 2. Everyone's seen Terminator 2.
No, I haven't.
Well, then, motherfucker, that's next episode we do
Yeah, I
together. You
haven't.
got to watch
So,
Terminator
like,
2.
So it's now Terminator is very ingrained in, like you said, in culture and
I'll
pop
be
culture.
back.
Yeah. So I was waiting
Come with
for
me
that.
if you want to live.
No, listen. So that means, like, what I'm trying to say is that you would assume, like, I know who plays the Terminator.
Right.
I can recognize. I know, like, Eddie Furlong is in. What is he in this?
T2, yep.
Yeah, he's in the second one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I knew who? What's her name? Linda
Hamilton.
I knew her face. Like, I knew, like, you know who all these people are. You know who their characters are. so it's like you feel like you don't even have to watch the movie. But like
Right.
I have not seen any of the films.
But you knew all that stuff, right?
Right, but I knew it all, but I just didn't know the story.
And you know that, for instance, like you know that, and I'm sure in the advertisements and any description of the movie, it's going to say that Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a Terminator, a robot. But if you can just watch the movie and just watch what's in front of your face, man, it's like you almost put yourself in the minds of the characters in the world. And that's what I find so interesting about sci-fi too, man, is like when you put, like, as the viewer, you know that science fiction is happening.
right.
But nobody in the story does. Like, I find it so interesting, dude. Like
Yeah, that is
part of the
interesting.
Terminator is like your standard like cop movie. Like they're looking
Yeah.
for a killer.
right.
They don't know that killer's from 2029 and he's a freaking robot, and they never find out because they all get killed. So in their opinions, like, just imagine, like, what are
Right.
they thinking
Yeah.
dealing with this unprecedented shit?
And actually, if you think about it, that was something that I did like about the movie, is just like how like easygoing Sarah Connor is. She's just like, okay, I accept
Nah,
it.
dude, she tries to run away a couple times.
No, when he finally explains everything to her, she's
Well,
not.
That's,
You know,
that's what's so important about the scene where that's like why they show him getting shot so many times. Is because
Yeah.
you know that he's a robot, dude. You know that he's indestructible if you know about the Terminator.
Yeah.
But nobody else does. So that's what she's the only person in the action of the film, besides Kyle Reese, who sees that Arnold Schwarzenegger's character has the ability to be shot 100 times and get up and still keep trying to kill you.
yeah,
So, like, that convinces her, right? It's not going to convince the cops because they didn't see that happen.
yeah. But I mean, all she knows is something like there's something weird about this. So for her to, I'm saying for her to accept it, because usually there's like a lot of like, you know, like you don't want to, like usually like, you know, you don't want to like tell anybody about what's going on because they're not going to believe it. You're like trying to hide something, but he's just like, I have to tell you, you have to know this, and you have to accept it as true.
Right.
And she does. Not that she doesn't have like moments of questioning. Like they do the whole thing where like she's like, "Is he crazy? Is he crazy?" Remember when they're in the in the police?
Is Reese crazy?
Yeah, like there's a lot of questioning, but then like she obviously comes to the conclusion that, and then she rolls with it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Like, okay, so I watched the movie twice. It was, in my eyes,
Twice.
it was
In general, or just this week?
this week. It's a goddamn chore for me to sit through Tenet again, but I'll gladly watch Terminator multiple times and take notes to talk about it on the podcast. So I took notes, just things I want to discuss.
Yeah.
But actually, maybe just, like, what did you think? Tell me what you thought.
Okay, so as far as the movie goes, it was really good. Like, it's 1984. I'm, what, 3? Like, it was incredible. Like, as far as, like, just a movie goes, like, it was awesome. Like, it was fast-paced. There was lots of action. There was hardly any downtime. Like, hardly anything was superfluous. Even, like, you know, the gratuitous sex scene, right? Like, even that, like, totally had a point. Like, it was, like, essentially the movie.
Yes.
You know? Like,
Yes.
like, and so it's like, I really appreciated it as a, like, really good, concise film.
Super efficient.
Yeah, unbelievable. And,
I think the ending is slightly superfluous. I think it drags on a little bit when he's just in his robot form.
I mean, a little bit.
I think once
just
Arnie gets off the screen, it's like, all right, we get it. It's a robot trying to kill the people.
But see, there's also like an element of like horror,
True.
you know? So I think it was
Yeah.
just kind of like, you know, like,
Because, I mean, because the whole point is that she needs to live.
Yeah.
Not just that she needs to be impregnated, but that she needs to live.
right.
So, like, if the Terminator just punches her in the face and she dies, that's game over for humans
Exactly.
in the future. So, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But
And I also just like the general like concept, like even if it didn't, it leaves the movie, like the storyline, everything, it obviously leaves so many things open, like for sequels and a whole bunch of stuff afterwards. But it really is like a nice, neat package. If nothing ever happened, past that, it's just a great, like short story. Like you just get like the meat of everything. You don't need the before, you don't need the after. You just get like everything. Like it starts, and it's just neat and clean too. Like I love how it's a time travel movie, but it's not, because you don't have to deal with any of the questioning that comes with time travel. He's like, remember when he's like, it's just, we're here and that's it. Like we came, that's it.
Dude, that part, like, dude, the fucking scene, like, okay, all the best, it's funny how, like, all the lines we remember are said by Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator.
Right.
Dude, Michael Biehn's performance in that movie is so good, dude. And all of his monologues, it's not just him, too, it's the writing. All of his monologues, dude, about the future and about why he's there. And all the scenes when he's in the police station and he's explaining, and just like the fucking look on his face when he's like, dude, everything around you is gonna be nuked in a couple years. Like, what your bullshit means nothing. Mm-hmm. Like, what means something is me and what I'm doing. Yeah. But they're not gonna believe him. No. You know what I mean? And like the scene, like when he goes, I have it written down, dude. He goes. Here, I wrote down a bunch of lines by him that are just so good, dude. I just think that his character and the writing behind his character does a good job of, like what you said earlier, of convincing both you, the audience, and her that all this is like happening and we need to deal with it. Yeah. Like I love when he goes, it absolutely will not stop ever until you are dead. Yes. Like when he's explaining, he's like, you can't run from this thing. Like, its only point of existing is to kill you. Right. You know what I mean? Like you can't bargain with it. Yeah. You can't convince it otherwise. Yeah. It feels no remorse. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Which is like really, it's so powerful, because whenever you're dealing with like a hitman in another film, it's just like it's a human. Yeah, so there can be bargaining, there can be, empathy, there can be, you can hold something over their head, you can offer it money, blackmail them, or you do all kinds of stuff. But he's just like, no. Yeah. Okay. And then, I want to just go through it. I mean, do you have anything else to say about like just what else about it? So, being that it was created in 1984. I thought the special effects stuff was really quite good. Yeah. I only had a couple issues, and those were all around the when they did like a prosthetic head. Yeah. There were just like two scenes that I was just like, what was the point of that? Like they could have done it, they could have totally avoided any of that dated it so poorly. I think you need shots of seeing his eye, his eye that's not a human eye anymore. Right. No, I get that, but I feel like there could have been better decisions made. Okay. Yeah, I mean, those agree. Were the only scenes that took me out. Yeah. I mean, because I was very forgiving. I was, of course, even like even like the stop motion and all that stuff. I mean, like I love that. I think that's incredible. I love that old way of doing special effects. But there were just a couple scenes that were a little bit difficult. But okay, I agree. Yeah. But at the same time, that's like one of my favorite parts of that movie is how his body slowly becomes less human. Yeah, no, it's incredible. Because in like all the sequels and most things having to do with AI or whatever, like physical damage usually doesn't mean anything. Right. Take Battlestar Galactica. You die, you reboot. Yeah. You just become you get a new body, and that allows like the same actor to play them with no makeup. You know what I mean? So I love that, dude. And like even like a character like Wolverine, like it's cool that he can regenerate, but he just regenerates and like he just looks exactly like he did before. But it's like, and I think he calls the Arnold Schwarzenegger model in Infiltrator. And so you have to imagine that
Oh, right.
Cybernet, is that what they're called? I can't believe I'm blanking.
I think so, yeah.
So Cybernet clearly created this model of Terminator so that it could infiltrate, so that it could blend in
Yeah.
and then kill when it needed to.
Right.
And it's just so cool, dude. Like, or even just like that's built into his programming that's like, you need to blend in. So get some big sunglasses to cover up that eye.
Right.
Like all his cover-ups are just so
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
like, what's the word? They're so cosmetic
Right.
and easily, like if he took his glasses off in any situation with that eye, everyone would be like, robot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what do you think of that opening, dude, with Bill Paxton?
Oh, it's hilarious.
And when I watched it over the summer, I told you guys about that scene.
Yeah.
How fucking aggressive Bill Paxton is,
Yes.
dude. He goes, I need your clothes now. He just goes, hey, fuck you, asshole. It's like, is that the greatest line or the worst line in any movie?
Well, how about the part when he's in that room and the janitor is or whatever is outside of it, and you see the
List of options.
options that he can respond with,
Yes.
and he chooses, what does he choose? It's
Fuck
like,
you, asshole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's a little aggressive too.
Right? Yeah.
But the best part is the guy doesn't even react. He's just
I
like,
know.
oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that was the appropriate choice.
Yeah.
No, I really did like what you're pointing out. The fact that he goes from a completely perfect,
Yeah.
because he lands naked. You see every bit of him.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect human specimen.
Right.
You know, a human, whatever, but like physical specimen.
Yeah.
And then slowly by the end, he gets crushed as just a piece of metal junk.
Yeah.
Like that is very cool. All I was speaking to was just the how far we've come in special effects.
Right, right.
Yeah, but I understand why those scenes were important. I just was saying I feel like there could have been another way to do them.
Yeah.
That wasn't such a stark difference from the rest of the special effects.
Yeah.
But I love that concept. I mean, because, you know, if you think about how the movie starts, like you just said, the opening and how it ends, it's like complete human robot,
Right, right.
which is neat.
Yeah. And I think I absolutely love, dude, the reveal of the Terminator wearing clothes in the broad daylight. Like, because you see these skinny punks wearing this like punk clothes, and it's like, you guys are wusses and you're doing this because it's a punk scene.
Yeah.
But if you take those clothes and you put him on a jacked robot who only wants to kill people and has that look in his eye, he looks fucking badass.
Right.
Like in that jacket with the spikes, it's like, dude, that jacket was made for the robot, not for the punks with the mohawks. It's so cool, dude. I love it. And so I want to just go through my list, dude. Okay, dude, and talk about a
Go for
movie
it.
that is so completely and totally just like the most 80s thing you've ever
Oh,
seen.
it's
in your
unbelievable.
life, dude.
Oh
But
my
I don't know
God, it's
why, but
unbelievable.
I think it works just because of all the mentions of time in the movie.
Right.
Like, it's not supposed to be present day. It's supposed to be 1984.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like, there are so many moments, dude. Like, that friggin' Vespa she's driving.
Yes.
And like when they're getting ready for the
Oh my Lord.
and she's got the headphones with the cord. And it gets
Yes.
mixed up with the hairdryer.
Yes.
Like, dude, that is so 80s.
Yes, and then even the strap on the Walkman, like
oh yeah,
that, like that was
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah, when
like,
she gets out of bed and she's walking.
yeah, and she has
to
a
the kitchen.
strap because
Yeah.
eventually we didn't have straps, and
Right.
like it's just, but like yeah,
And, like,
that's
obviously-
deep 80s.
dude, and like their hair, obviously, like their outfits.
Oh god, yeah, and then stop with the tech noir, the entire club scene.
Oh yeah.
Like every bit of everything that happens in that is
Yeah.
amazing.
And I remember he's walking. The Terminator's walking through the crowd to go kill her, and like the last guy he walks by, the guy's wearing like this. It's like has cut off sleeves, and he's got fingerless gloves on, and I'm just like, what? Like you like people in
Yeah.
the 80s really like
Yeah.
you dressed like it was Mad Max.
Yeah, it was
Like-
just a beautiful, beautiful 80s time capsule.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
But okay, another thing I want to say about the 80s.
Yeah.
Okay. This is going to be a weird concept, but going for it.
Okay.
I feel like the 1980s is the only time period where a person can be completely naked and still look like they're dressed, and it's the 80s. During the sex scene, you see her completely naked from the waist up, and she still looks like she's wearing clothes. She still looks dressed because of her hair. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you just take a naked human, like, from the 80s,
right?
And you know it's the 80s.
You can tell, yeah.
It's just funny.
Yeah, that's
like,
great.
I'm watching that scene, and I'm like, she still looks like she's from the 80s, even though they're doing what humans have been doing for a millennia.
That's
You know
very
what I mean?
funny.
So, okay. So let's talk about all these dope concepts.
Okay.
This will just be funny to read through what I wrote while I was watching it.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know what cops are. How much does he know about the things that will prevent him from completing his mission? How thoroughly briefed is he?
I don't think he's briefed at all. And you know why? Because they don't even... Remember, he says they didn't even know who she was.
Yeah, but...
So they
True.
just went in, like, they just went into it. Well, because they're machines.
Talking about Reese.
Oh.
So let me start over.
Read that again.
Reese doesn't even know what cops are. How much does he know about the things that will prevent him from completing his mission? How thoroughly briefed is he? Did you think about that?
No.
Because then that leads into, does he know what year he needs to go to? Or does he ask what year it is? Remember, to the cop? Remember, he takes that cop's gun in the beginning and goes, what year is it?
He just wants to make sure he's where he's supposed to be.
Well, this is what I'm wondering. Does he okay, or does he ask what year it is because he's following someone and just needs to end up wherever the pursued was going?
Yes.
Or he's just curious, maybe he's wondering about the weapons available to him?
No. He just needs to make sure he's in the same place the Terminator is.
But how does he know the Terminator's going to 1984? That's my point. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
Because you could kill her at any time, as long as she's alive.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to 1984.
Right, but that's just where they went.
So, well, I'm wondering, when he went through the machine, did he just say, go where that guy went? Or did he know that Terminator was going to 84 and he needed to go to 84? Is my question.
Oh, I don't know.
No, I just think it's interesting to ponder.
Oh, my God.
Don't you?
No.
Well, why not?
Because
it's just an interesting concept.
What? But it doesn't have any bearing on anything, as far as the film is concerned.
It does, in my opinion, as far as like just seeing Reese react to his surroundings.
Well, because he never had any visuals on it. I perceive it as he didn't have any visuals on it, but he knew that it was he knew from stories. Well, actually, maybe he had pictures. I mean, you don't know what was left.
Well, so my point is,
yeah.
Since you're saying you don't know, like, we don't know whether he knew specifically to go to 1984 or if he just needed to go where the Terminator went. Because that doesn't have to be 1984. The Terminator could show up in 1974 and Sarah would be a little girl.
Matter. Yeah.
So then, since we don't know, my point is, we don't know why he asks what year it is. Obviously, the first thing any time traveler in any story does is, what year is it? But, like, why does he need to know that?
Just to make sure that it's not 2029?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, yeah, me either.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Maybe it has nothing to do with the character and it's just for the audience.
True. You're right. But, okay, so that leads into my next question. Mm-hmm. Imagine if the time machine got it wrong and the T-101 ended up in medieval times. What would he do then? Like, what would a Terminator...
Does this seriously go on in your head all the time?
Dude, no. It goes on when I watch the Terminator, and what leads me to want to talk about it on a podcast.
Oh, my gosh. These questions are wild.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why I love the Terminator, dude, because it gives you only enough to understand the story, but it leaves wide open all these other questions.
But why would he go to the medieval times?
If the time machine got it wrong, he goes through a time machine. What if it accidentally sent him to 1784?
Okay, then he had to be prepared for what he was supposed to find, because he went straight for a phone book.
True, but I love the line where she goes, "Can you kill him?" And he goes, "I don't know. With these weapons,
Right.
I don't know."
Yeah.
Like, that one little line just opens up, like, the implications of, like, I don't know. It's just like how much does he know before he gets to 1984 in Los Angeles of all places?
Well, because he's talked to people who
Lived there?
Yeah. So he would just be, because Reese would be the next generation after, because I get the impression that John Connor is older than him, than Reese in the future.
100% he is.
Okay.
Because if you know about, because Terminator 2 takes place before Judgment Day, and John Connor is a teenager.
Okay.
John Connor is like the main character of Terminator 2.
I know.
Okay.
So, but I don't know anything. I'm just looking at just this film.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So without doing the math, because I could do the math too. 2029, 1984. I could do all the math. So anyway,
Right.
The way I look at it is that obviously she did a really good job of raising her son, John. So and then we know that by the end of it, when she's doing the recordings and stuff. So obviously she told him a lot about the past and the world and who she is and all that stuff. So, the other thing that's so fascinating is that John knows the whole time. That Reese is his
own dad.
Is his dad. Like, that's like wild. Like, the implications of all of that are that's totally wild. So like you presume that like stories have been told, like there is a record of what life used to be like.
Right.
So I would presume that he is well aware. And then if you're treating it sort of like, obviously it's like he's part of an organized sort of military type thing. So that would usually involves a degree of, information, intelligence, whatever. So I guarantee you he was vetted on what he was going to find in the past.
Right.
So all I can assume is that he must have, like, he knew what life would be like at that point in time.
Okay.
And the thing is humans created the cyborgs, right?
Yeah.
So the cyborgs.
Wait, no.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Humans didn't create the cyborgs.
The machines took over.
The machines basically took over and then built robots.
That's right. Okay. So, but since it was a networked system, they had to have information. If it's a computer system, then it would have had information on what the past was like as well and what to expect, so that you could inform the cyborgs of what life was like as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think everyone probably knows what's going on, like, because you might have obliterated Los Angeles, but you don't obliterate, humans survived. So the story survives, records survive, archives survived, especially if you're dealing with computers, there would be a lot of information on the network.
It's just, okay, so, maybe I'm hung up on it. Like, when I watch it, I just imagine, like, Reese came from hell, right?
Yeah.
Like, imagine coming from hell, and then you come to, like, the relative safety of Los Angeles in 1984. Like,
oh, yeah, good times.
You would be like... One of my notes in here I have is if you were Kyle Reese, wouldn't you want to say fuck the mission and just live 13 years without nuclear war?
Yeah, but see, that's why the Terminator is part of the story, because if you take him out, then that becomes an issue. But because he's there, that's not an issue.
Right.
Because how do you ignore that?
Yeah, you can't. Well, that's the one thing. I remember when I watched this movie over the summer, it gave me the idea to talk about it here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, like, that I'm most confused about. If you watch that movie, it's like, why is Reese just tailing her? Like, why doesn't he come up to her at first to be like, hey, listen, you're the key to the future, and I have to protect you. And the reason is because he has the double mission. In order to make the mission of keep Sarah alive happen, you have to take out the Terminator.
Yeah.
So that's why he tails her and doesn't tell her, so that he can surprise attack the Terminator when he tries to attack her.
Yeah. Well, but also remember, he says he doesn't know who it is. He doesn't know who the Terminator is.
He says that?
Yeah. He's like, I had to make sure.
Oh.
Yeah. So he was just watching,
Good
just making
point.
sure. So, and that actually, if you think about it, but he
That's
wasn't.
good. That adds a whole another layer.
Yeah, because if you think about it, he wasn't even sure if. He wouldn't have been sure if he was in the right place, if he would even be able to carry out his mission until he saw the Terminator attacker.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So that's probably also why he needs to, like, get his bearings as far as, like, where am I? What time is it? Like, because he doesn't even know. He's just, like, prepared.
Right.
Because honestly, when he crashes down, when he gets zapped there in the beginning, mission could have been over. You're right, if he had been in the wrong place.
Yeah. Or if he had, like, been zapped over, like, a pit of lava.
Yeah, that would have
Or
sucked.
fire. Okay. This is just about movies in general, not about sci-fi.
Yeah.
The cop stirring his tea while the crazy criminal walks by tells you everything you need to know about that character. Like, I love that moment.
Wait, what moment
Like,
is that?
no words at all. Completely characterizes that the head cop. So the first ever scene in the police station opens with a criminal, like, freaking out, screaming, yelling, being ushered away by cops, and he's stirring his tea and just kind of steps out of the way and holds his arms up.
Oh, right.
And he's just like, so it just tells you, like, this is everything. Like, this guy doesn't care about, like, he's super chill. Like, he's just doing his job.
Right.
And he's like
Okay.
a seasoned professional.
Yes.
I just love that moment. And, like, that character's the man. Like, in that same scene, I think it's like the same shot. The other cop comes up and he's like, he like gives him the papers and he talks and he takes his glasses off. He's like, these do work, you know. Because he's telling him something that he's reading.
Right.
So he takes his glasses off and he goes, you know, these do work.
Yeah.
Like, that guy's, I like that character a lot.
How about that whole exchange where he's like, you know, that coffee's 2 hours cold, and then he goes, and I put my cigarette out and he's still drinking it.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, I don't know. I feel like
No,
that.
you do have a good point. Like, it's like in one instant, as far as, you know, just like creating a character, you know, like in a second,
Right.
you instantly, you're right, understand who that person
In
is.
the very first shot that
Yeah.
he is
Yeah.
in. Okay, my next thought. Why does she have a lizard just for one jump scare?
I know. How weird is that?
It has, like, nothing to do with, like, her character, or it would make more sense if she had, like, a pet robot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, except maybe, I don't know, maybe it says something, you know, like a typical person would have a cat or a dog.
Yeah.
But she has an iguana.
So there is a moment way later in my notes where
Yeah.
the part, because, I mean, she mentions it too. She's like, I'm not, like, why me? Like, do I seem legendary to you?
Oh, yeah, she's like, I can't even pay my bills.
Yeah,
or
I can't
something
even
like-
balance my checkbook.
Yeah, to balance my checkbook.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
But there's one moment too where, remember, he gets shot and she wraps it.
Yeah.
And he goes, pretty good field dressing.
Yeah.
She goes, it's my first. And it's not much, but it's like a little tiny thing where it's like,
Yeah.
maybe she is super adaptable
Right.
and could become this, like, super important person in your
Right.
future war.
Yeah.
Okay, I have more notes. Wait.
I loved the iguana, though. I'm sorry. I loved it. It was so totally random.
Yeah. Dude, how about in that same scene when the Terminator comes in and punches the pillow and the dude dodges?
Yeah.
And he goes, he's like, don't make me mess you up, man.
Yeah.
He just gets fucking destroyed.
Yes.
It's like, don't make me mess
and
you
like
up,
every time he gets like smashed against something, he's like more and more messed up.
And he keeps getting up, dude.
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing, though, man. It's like nobody knows it's
No.
a fucking machine.
Yeah, because you would if you knew what it was, you'd run.
Yeah, and like
You would run so far away.
yeah, and the best fighter in the world
Yeah.
would put up a fight against a criminal.
Yeah,
who doesn't
absolute-
look
yeah.
like they have a gun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So So I wrote here, and these could be throwaway. You could be like, Jared, you're wrong. How could you be good at protecting someone if you've never been in a city before? The movie lacks his reaction to being in civilization until he says all this, which maybe is cool because maybe that's the view of everything around me is pathetic and sad because I know that it's going to get nuked.
Yeah, but also he has like training.
Oh yeah, he's like in the military.
Yeah, like he's been trained by John, remember?
Right.
John taught them all how to fight.
Yeah.
So he grew up having to survive on the streets, you know, with no resources. Remember, I mean, how like desperate he talks about his like childhood,
rats and shit.
Yeah, and then the scene from like the actual slums of whatever pathetic city is left of you know, Los Angeles or whatever. So I think that it's just like the concept is that he is highly adaptable. He is very well trained. He knows how to make anything out of wherever he is.
Yeah.
So I think just, you know, I mean, because the same, we watch movies there are movies all the time, like disaster movies and stuff all the time where people are like navigating these insane situations because they have military training.
True.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, again, like I said, I love the implications of like, when he's like, she asks if he can kill the Terminator. He just goes with these weapons. I don't know. And I love the most dialogue the Terminator ever gives, I think, is when he goes in the gun store.
Yeah.
Dude, I love that scene when he's like, he's like a plasma rifle, and the guy he's like, hey, only what you see in the store, man. Yeah. And it's like, dude, he's from the future. That's why he's talking about a plasma rifle. He's like, I only got what you see in the store, man. And then he's like, you can have the. He's like, there's a 10-day hold on the pistols, but you can have the rifles now. And he's like loading the shotgun.
Yeah.
He's like, you can't do that. It's like wrong. Boom. Like, I don't know. It's just like.
Well, it's also fun because in any other movie with a character like that, there probably would have been a money exchange. Like, you know what I mean? Because usually, like, you know, like hitmen or you know, like snipers or whatever, like they have like, you know, they're like. They have money, you know, like
right.
They're well supplied.
Money talks in most situations.
So they would, you know, that same scene would go down in another movie, but he would actually just like pay him for it all.
Yeah, he'd be like, "Well, I'll give you $5,000 extra if you don't, if you just give them to me now."
And also, you never would have gotten that bit about how you can't take any because the money would talk. But like you get to that little added bit about how you can you have to take, you can take these, but you have to wait on these because you know presumably a background check or you know whatever. Yeah. But like that would never come up in another movie, but it can come up in this because there's not going to be a money exchange. It's going to take them no matter what.
Right. Yeah. When she's asking him more and they're in the parking garage, and he goes, "It was a nuclear war a few years from now. All this whole place, everything, it's gone." Like, I just feel like you never like learn like what does Reese think about being here now? Like, I get that he's very much just on a mission.
Yeah,
I know it's not in the movie, but I just as a human thinking about this situation, that's just what I think about. It's like, like wouldn't you be conflicted, dude? Like, wouldn't you? Again, I know he's on a mission, but like, wouldn't you want to be like I want to look at that thing over there because I've never seen that before.
Yeah, but you could say that about like every movie. You know, they like don't address things like that.
Yeah, I guess.
You know?
Yeah.
Like it's just like you have to take so many things for face value when you
dude, I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a flaw in the film. I'm saying it's just maybe my overactive imagination. Like that's just what I imagine, dude.
Definitely overactive imagination is what I'm chalking up most of this. That's why I was just like, wow, this is what you think about. Well, like I'm definitely a much more of a face value kind of person. Like I'm definitely like I'm you could probably say I'm like gullible, you know?
Okay.
And so like when I watch these, I'm like, this is what's happening. Like I don't like I think about implications, I think, you know, around, but it's like always so much fun to talk to you because you're always like one step outside of every situation.
Well, I just take it like Reese is a human and I am a human.
Yeah.
And when Reese talks about that part, I just think about what's going on in his mind. But then you bring up like the whole military thing, and it's like, again, just carrying out a mission.
And
and
also
apparently the most important mission. So do not get distracted by
Yeah.
this whatever's going on in the 80s in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and also if you think about how dire his situation is that he comes from, he's going to be thinking, I need to do everything within my power to help fix that. And that means focusing on the
Right.
task at hand.
Yeah, that's true, because the 1980s LA, that's not his world.
No.
He only cares about his world,
Right.
the people he loves,
Yeah.
and who he wants to protect.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I have here the looks Reese gives the psychologist are amazing. Like, you feel his frustration.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? It's just
Yeah.
like,
I liked that whole part. And I feel like that's a part that you don't usually get in film, like where like in an interrogation situation like that, where like it's always just like, like face value, or you just throw someone in a prison, or like you don't actually like call in the psychologist and try to find out if they're crazy
Right.
or not. Like
Yeah.
It was great.
So my favorite line in the whole movie is, nobody goes home, nobody else goes through.
Mm-hmm.
It's just him and me. Mm-hmm. That is my favorite. That's my favorite, like, central thing
Yeah.
in the whole movie.
Yeah, that was really good.
It literally is. It's man versus machine.
Yes.
One man, one machine. Mm-hmm. It's so cool. Like,
I think that shows how hyper-focused he is on the task at hand, too.
Right.
If that's how he's perceiving what's going on, he's like, it's just him and me. That's it.
yeah, like
Like,
you people in 1984
right,
don't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All
that matters.
And even she barely matters, except for the fact that she needs to be alive. She needs to be kept alive because
Right.
she's that important. Then the other stuff, the other stuff kind of follows, like
Right.
the intimate relationship, or getting to know each other, him realizing that she's actually a human and not just a target,
Yeah.
or whatever. But yeah, I think that definitely explains a lot of that.
Yeah. I just love that line, because it's just
It's awesome.
It's more like, it gives it just like a personal feel, even though that like the war hinges on it. It's like, imagine what's weighing on Reese's mind.
Oh yeah.
It's just him and
Yeah.
me.
Well, think about how that's like the first thing he does is grab that. Where he grabs the shotgun after the cops chase him around. He grabs a shotgun,
Right.
And that's like the first thing he does is like get that ready. Like
Yeah, and it's
you
cool
know.
because like you don't realize, I guess the first time watching, or maybe you do, is that everything he does from the moment he gets there
Yeah.
is a means to an end.
Right.
Like he's intentionally,
Right.
yeah, like just clothing himself. Like he's not clothing himself because he's cold. He's doing it so that he can complete his mission.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And how lucky is he that he runs into a closed clothing store?
Oh, I know, that was so
when
funny.
he's naked. You know what I mean?
I love the Nike ad placement too.
Oh yeah.
Like when it's like literally just the scene is just the shoes.
right, coming down.
Yeah, and I was like, I thought to myself, like, wonder how many of those sold.
Okay, this is going to be another example of you thinking that I'm totally crazy and weird. Okay, because the beginning of what I'm about to say we already talked about, and you can just maybe address the end. I said, I love the temporary fixes the T-101 does to his own body just to blend in enough to complete his mission. What would he do if he succeeded? Like, if he blasted away the two of them,
No, that
what
is a really
would
good point.
he do?
No, that's a good one. That's a very good question. I wonder what he would do. Because once his mission, he can't go back.
Right.
Like, would he just wander around?
And dude, the Terminator universe is one where you never, ever, ever see the machine side.
No, not at all.
It's not like
No.
Cylons.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Like you don't really like. There's no like cybernet
Yeah.
like end game.
Right now.
It's just kill humans.
That's a very good point, though. Like, I wonder, yeah, would he just like, maybe his technology would, like adapt and he would just, like get a part-time job.
Well, dude, I think it's cool too. Like that I mean, in a different way, but that Terminator needs to be briefed on like Terminators use plasma weapons. This Terminator needs to know how to use 1984 weapons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's the first thing he does is go to the gun store, and he
also
knows
needs to-
all about
He
these
also
guns.
needs to know how to drive a car.
True, but they show scenes. They show scenes in the future war where they're driving, so kind of. maybe not a robot, but
Yeah, where the people are driving, but they're being chased by those crazy tank things.
yeah.
That, I mean, I would just presume that they would be robots themselves and not anyone, not like a robot driving a machine.
Right.
Because why would a machine need to drive a machine?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just
That's
like
a good point.
Just like that's one of my favorite parts about BSG is when you find out that the Raider things
Raiders.
are actually like creatures.
Yeah,
I loved that.
it's pretty messed up.
I loved that.
Yeah, dude, I won't give it away, but you learn
Yeah.
even more about like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
and like cool concepts with that.
But like I just kept imagining it was like they were like those were spaceships, and that the spaceships are manned by like those metal
Centurions.
yeah, whatever
Yeah,
the
yeah.
heck they are. And then when you come to find out that like the machine, like it is its own thing, I loved that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Second best line in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how do you take this like crazy action movie and turn it into a fucking genuine love story? Is when he goes, and it's, dude, I'm not a huge 80s action movie fan, but anyone who is that loves Michael Biehn because that's when he was at the height. Like he's like the main badass in Aliens, which is another 80s action movie. Anyway,
He is?
Yes.
See, he wasn't familiar to me at all.
That's the thing, man. If you're not into 80s movies, then you like.
But like I love Alien.
Aliens,
Oh.
the sequel,
Oh. Sorry.
which I think sucks, but most people think is 10 times better than the original.
Really? I don't know if I've even seen it.
So Alien
Yeah.
is one alien on one ship.
Yes.
Aliens
Yeah.
is a bunch of fucking meatheads with machine guns.
Oh.
They're called Space Marines.
Oh boy.
And they go to a planet with like 1,000 aliens.
Oh.
And they just pull that trigger. That's the whole movie.
Yikes.
So I'm not a fan of that one, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So when Michael Bihn's performance and like the look he gives when he goes, I came across time for you, Sarah. I love you. I always have.
Yeah.
And it's like you believe it
Yeah.
because, and that's one of the things he says that he was thinking before he went back. He's like, I wanted to meet the legend. Like
Yeah.
you're a legend.
Yeah.
And no one in my time can ever meet you.
Yeah.
But I have this opportunity to go
Yeah.
back, not only meet you, but save you.
Yeah.
And like be your savior. And like, I don't know, dude. I think the movie somehow pulls that off, in that you really believe that he would love her.
Yeah.
You know?
And then he has the picture, and he like talks about how he like stared at it like all the time,
Yeah.
and like yeah, I could. And obviously, it obviously he has so much, love and respect for John,
Right.
and so like it would stand to reason that the person that made John who he was
Right.
would be, like Mother Mary,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like something that would come off as cheesy, but somehow like it's not at all, and like you really feel it.
Well, that's one of the things that I think is so cool too, is that like that is part of the storyline. Like it's like I was saying, like it's not superfluous. Like you have to have that stuff.
Yeah.
So like it does feel like genuine.
Yeah.
Like because it's not just, people making out for the sake of making out because they survived something together. It's like, no, like you had a history and a future. It's like, like you it's like really important to what's going on, but it's like they didn't know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. You believe their love story as just a love story, and then you also recognize that it's also essential to the whole plot.
Yeah.
And it somehow does them both at the same time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does that really well.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have anything else to say about Terminator.
It's just a good movie. Like it
so
really
good.
is. Like
You really know nothing about the sequel?
no, I don't. Like
You guys
I've
should
not.
watch it,
I mean,
dude.
like I said, like I've seen parts of it in pop culture, like, and it's referenced, and I've probably seen part of it on TV at some
Yeah.
point when they played it or whatever. But I've never watched it from beginning to end. I don't know what it's about. I don't know, how it starts
really
or
don't know
how
what
it
it's about?
ends. No, I had no idea what this one was about. Nothing.
Do you think that you'll watch it?
I can watch it.
You should watch it because then I won't get. There's like a huge. The first Terminator and Terminator 2 are very different for one very specific reason.
Yeah.
And you don't know what that is?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. Then I won't say anything.
Okay,
I love
I'll watch it.
I love though the first body alteration that he gets is that he loses his eyebrows.
Oh,
remember?
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
We had a whole debate when we were watching it. I was like, does he have eyebrows?
Yeah, he loses them in the.
I mean, does he not have? I was
Yeah,
where'd they go? Like, did he not have? Like, I was very confused about the eyebrow situation.
He drives through fire on his motorcycle, I think. Yeah, and when he comes out, he has no eyebrows.
Okay,
so then that's when he puts on those huge sunglasses.
Right.
What do you think about that scene, dude? What do you think about that scene when he goes into the police station? I mean, that's where the classic line comes from.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
be back.
Yeah.
And it's weird. Like, I watch it, and I'm like, that is the classic line.
Isn't it funny?
Because
yeah,
he says it like so nonchalant in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
But when you say it now, you go, I'll be back. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not how he says it at all. No. But that whole, like, I don't know, that whole scene is just, like, weird.
I think it's great. It's just like total. It's like the epitome of like total disregard for that world in that time period.
Yeah.
You know, like who does that? Who storms a, you know, like everyone has enough sense to stay away from cops and
right.
police stations, and like no one would do that. But he doesn't care.
No.
You know? And he also like it's not even that he doesn't care because like he can just take them all out, but it's like he doesn't even understand what the implications of it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great.
I love how he walks in and he goes, I'm a friend of Sarah Connor. I was told she was here. And then he goes, like, the point of asking that is to find out if she's there.
Yeah.
And the guy confirms that she's there. And then he goes, you can't be here. He just goes, where is she?
Yeah.
Like that, he just needs to know where she is.
Yeah.
Like if the guy told her he's next to that window over there,
right,
he would just walk around and pull her out of the window.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he's like, I'm not going to give you any more information. And so he just goes, all right, I'll be back.
Yeah.
And I'll find out where she is myself because I brought a bunch of fucking guns. It's just so badass.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Went off
What
on
did you...
Terminator tangent.
Dude, I need to talk to somebody about that movie.
It was a really good, like I keep saying, but it was like a really good movie, like by any standards.
Yeah.
Like it was really good.
I'm kind of jealous that you don't know anything about Terminator 2. Because, dude, it's widely considered
like I didn't
one of the
even
best
know,
sequels ever made.
I didn't even know, like I really didn't even know this, like anything about this movie. Like I guess I had a general concept of like what was about to go on, but like I remember one of my favorite parts was when the movie shows you that Arnold Schwarzenegger is a machine. How it goes to his perspective, and you see the things.
The red?
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!"
Yeah.
Like it was such a great way to explain to the audience that like what he was.
And
I loved it.
And what's so good about, and what's fun to go back and watch that movie is certain things that are cool get exploited and like used too much. Like something, for example, something being indestructible and like regenerating.
Right.
Like this was 84, dude. This is like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like all the concepts in the Terminator have been done to death.
Yeah.
But it's so fun to go back and watch it and just try to put yourself in 1984 mindset of like a lot of these concepts weren't done to death.
Right.
And like you're hearing I'll be back for the first time.
Yeah.
You're seeing him appear. Like, dude, the other problem with the Terminator as a franchise is the first two Terminators have the same ending. Terminator 2 and 3 have the same beginning. So the franchise just recycles shit.
Yeah.
Like Terminator 2 and 3, he gets his clothes from a biker bar. It's like the same thing.
Oh, that's weird.
And Terminator 2 ends in like a machinery like warehouse, and there's like no other people around, You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they kill it with machinery. So to go back and watch this all like for the first time, and like you could even say like in Star Wars, like imagine if like Kyle Reese survived, right? Mm-hmm. And met John Connor, he could have his own "I am your father" moment.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's just cool.
Yeah, I did think at the end of the movie, I did think about like, I was like, imagine seeing this film, and I do this with like a lot of older movies. I'm like, imagine seeing this film for the first time in a theater, like how totally like revved you'd be at the end of it. You'd be like, that is a good movie. Like, because like again, like if you purely look at it as an action film, it's awesome. Like there's no downtime. It's just like go, go, go. Like it was really good. Like it was really good. Like it was just like a fun, like to the point, like, you know, and it's actually interesting that they did create so many sequels, that it did become a franchise, because it would have been amazing standalone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While I was looking at some information about the Terminator, like I always do, whenever I'm done with a movie or something, I'm just like straight to the internet.
Let's hear it.
Let's learn everything.
Yep.
One of the things I thought was interesting is that I kept seeing a female name associated with it. And the producer is Gail Ann Hurd.
Is that his wife?
Yeah, they were married.
Yeah.
Her and James Cameron.
Yeah.
At one point, no longer. But it's just really interesting that, like, you know, like how we're always talking about, you know, female, you know, lack of female, you know, representation in Hollywood and, you know, stuff like that. And so I was just like really, I thought it was really interesting that, like, you know, like maybe like a lot of like, you know, like the big names out there aren't, you know, women, but like they're always like behind the scenes, man.
Always, dude.
You know, it's so cool. And
like,
so
like hidden figures.
Right. Yeah,
the whole
exactly.
point.
Yeah. And so when I was reading about her and her life and, you know, everything like that, I found a very interesting tidbit.
What's that?
In 2003, she was awarded the Telluride Tech Festival Award of Technology at Telluride, Colorado, along with Sir Arthur C. Clarke.
Really?
Isn't that weird?
It's random.
Isn't that totally random? It's like
Yeah.
6 degrees. We can play 6 degrees of Arthur C. Clarke.
Okay, well, it's funny you should say that, because I listen to a podcast called Stuff You Should Know.
Yeah.
I've listened to hundreds of episodes in my life. And so now if I want to listen, like I just scroll until I just find one that I haven't listened to yet.
Yeah.
And I listened to one about fractals this past week.
Yeah.
And the host mentioned Arthur C. Clarke.
Isn't that weird?
And
It's
I
like
don't
he's
think
everywhere.
They've ever mentioned him before.
How funny is that?
It's pretty funny. Dude,
Yeah.
okay, the first time we ever recorded,
Yeah.
I was on my way over here in my car, and I was listening to a Tribe Called Quest album,
Yeah.
and they use a sample in one of the songs from the movie 2001.
Weird.
And I could hear it in the background.
Oh my God, that's
on
so
my
weird.
way here to record.
Weird.
Not just like the week before.
Jeez.
Yeah,
All these connections, man.
I know.
I cannot wait to see what the next novel has in store.
Yeah, dude. Let's cut this mofo off before we hit 3 hours.
Nice.
Okay, so the last thing, something I should have said in the beginning is that the Space Dreamers podcast is on Instagram. So if you want to go there and see pictures of the books that I'm reading and see behind the scenes stuff, you should follow me. You could also like message me and talk to me, because I'm not like cool or famous or anything. So if you want to talk about sci-fi, you should do that.
You're very cool. You're
it's-
not famous, but you are very cool.
Yeah, that's just like your opinion, man. It's the Space Dreamers, right? There's a the, right?
Yeah, the Space Dreamers.
Okay, so at THESPACEDREAMERS, the Space Dreamers on Instagram. Go check that out. I guess that's it. Next episode, we're talking about Islands in the Sky by Arthur C. Clarke, his third novel, written only 1 year after The Sands of Mars was released. And we'll have more things. I'm going to have a different co-host, actually. Do you know this?
No.
So Heather's going to be my co-host
Nice.
for episode 3. That's my other sister. Heather and I usually like to make fun of things and like laugh about shit.
Yep.
So for that episode, we're going to be watching 2 sci-fi comedies.
Nice. What are they?
And talking about them.
Do you know what they are?
I don't think this will change. It's going to be Evolution.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen that?
Yes.
And Slither. Please tell me you've seen Slither.
Oh.
With Nathan Fillion
I feel like I have.
and the little slugs.
Yeah, I feel like I have.
Great movie. Comedy, basically.
This is gonna be a great episode.
And we'll be talking about the islands in the sky. So
Nice.
that should be fun. And then episode 4, we have Mallory. Shout out to Mallory
Definitely.
because she's reading Childhood's End.
Yes.
So that'll be fun. And Childhood's End is really where you get into the true Arthur C. Clarke, like, classic, like that. Childhood's End is widely considered by your average sci-fi enthusiast to be his greatest novel. Even better than 2001.
It's awesome. I'm excited.
I've read it. It's up
Yeah.
there. I don't know if it's better, but whatever. So we'll see you next time. Greetings, space dreamers. I just want to give a huge shout out to my gracious co-host Amy for joining me today and listening to my mad ravings about the Terminator. I also have to give a massive shout out to Kevin Lesage for going above and beyond in creating all of the music that you heard in today's episode. Another huge shout out to my sister Heather for performing my ads. And last but not least, Quinlan Orleans Akins, my man, the greatest voiceover artist in the world, for reading all the passages from the book, The Sands of Mars, in today's episode. All right, guys, so leave me a 5-star review if you feel like it. Leave me a review if you feel like it, telling me how good or bad you think this podcast is. Please hit me up on Instagram. Direct message me there. It's at The Space Dreamers, all one word, no space, no symbols, nothing like that. Send me a message. Connect with me if you want. I don't have an email. I don't have a website quite yet, so hit me up over there, and we'll talk about sci-fi. All right. I guess that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. Next week, we're talking about the islands. No, I'm sorry. We're talking about Islands in the Sky by Arthur C. Clarke. Thank you so much, and keep your head up. Keep looking at the stars. Thanks. Bye-bye.
This has been a Sue Madre production. Thank you for joining us.